Hey everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood ex-Muslim, Abdullah Samir. Welcome to episode 63 of my podcast. And today I'm joined by a special friend of mine, John DelVento. We've actually had a conversation before, so this is not the first time. It's going to be the second time we're having a conversation. But I've seen a lot has happened since the last time we talked. John has actually come out a lot more on Twitter with his views, and he's been saying a lot of stuff. So, now is a good time to kind of get into it to talk about what's on his mind. Who is this individual? So a lot of you don't know who he is. So we're gonna go through his story. How's it going, John?
I am doing all right. Good to see you, Abdullah. So I feel like you're like my sensei or my peer, and I have to bow to you because you've created a monster. Seriously, I
I
didn't
created
expect
a
it.
monster.
I didn't expect it, man. But you have a great channel. I watched it sort of even when I was at a Muslim, and then when I came out quietly. Years after I came out, I just decided to hit you up and say, I'm just this white convert, but I guess I have a story. Can I go on your channel? And you gave me the opportunity, and it was fun. And I've connected with some great people later. And as you said, I've gotten in quite a bit of Twitter wars since then. And since then, my Twitter's transformed, and almost my life is transformed. And I appreciate it, man. It's given me a positive perspective, and it's shown me that leaving religion for me came from honestly a very unique perspective. Some might call it privilege, some might call it confused, but for me it's my life. So, and it gave me a lot of joy and fulfillment to be able to share it on your channel. And since then it's grown to, like you said, friends, to have friends and have cool connections and stuff, and I'm excited. So it's good to come back because there's a lot more. Every time I share something on my Twitter, people are like, who is this guy? Some people think I'm a Muslim, they think I'm Mossad, they think I'm ex-Muslim, they think I'm atheist, I might be a prophet. They think I'm Hindu Tava. I don't know, but it's nice to be back, man. But people are asking about my name in the chat. I saw. I'm not really watching the chat, but you
Yeah.
might see it as John. In the first video, it was under Yahya because I was kind of scared to not scared. I wanted to come out kind of quietly. I didn't really want to be too public with this. So it's under Yahya if you guys want to find that. That's what my Muslim name was.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah, I'm
actually linked
John.
it. It's actually linked. So those of you who are interested in John's first conversation with me, it's actually linked in the details. And those of you who are listening to the podcast, it's one of the earlier podcasts. I don't remember which number, but I'll link it as well.
I was quite tepid in that podcast, in that episode too. Obviously, it was my first time. I'm just a composer. If you're watching online, you see I'm in my studio. I write music for a living and stuff. I'm not a religious specialist. I love it and I love history, but I was kind of easy in that podcast, right? So in this one,
Yeah.
we're live. I'm pretty hardcore on Twitter. We can go pretty hard. I mean, so I'm more confident now about freedom of speech and things like that. So
Awesome.
we can go at it in part two. Grab
Let's
a
let's
coffee.
go let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to your background is Christian. So, and we wanted to talk about this a bit. Like, there's a lot of differences in Christianity, and you actually understand this a lot better than I do. Can you just tell me a little bit more about, you know, those differences and what you've seen, and how that affected your upbringing, even?
So yeah, obviously I know there's probably a lot of Muslims coming on, and sometimes I know if you talk about other religions on your channel, they might get disinterested. But
Mm,
guys, this has to do with exactly how what's going on in the Muslim world.
mm,
I often talk on my channel about hadith and where Sunnis and Shias and where different Islamic groups get their authority from. And this is the same issue in Christianity. So the primary issue in Christianity is, where do the Christians get their authority from? Do they get it from the Bible alone, the scripture, which is the Protestant faith, which is what I grew up in? I'm from the New England area of the United States, the colonial area, not the colonial, the settler region, the Puritans up in Boston, those old, the Mayflower with the big black hats and stuff, those are Protestant Christians, Bible only. And that could lead to, in itself, several offshoot interpretations because that's when you have all sorts of different types of Christians. And I was a Baptist, and we can get into that. But I was a Protestant. And the other side of Christianity believes in getting your authority from the Bible, as well as the opinions of the Pope and the saints and the apostles and the authorities. That's called the Catholic Church. And that's kind of what we get with, I'm pretty strong against Salafism and a lot of,
mm.
Sunni Islam. That's what that, ideology is getting your authority from not just the holy book, from the opinions of a bunch of guys. So
Can
I
can
was
I ask?
raised on Protestantism, and that's why I think it requires a very bookish upbringing, because it's all about the book. So I was always reading from a young age. My mom read me the Bible stories, the children's Bible. We have little stories like watered down versions of creation and Noah's Ark and stuff like that. So, I was always and so, I'm always interested in history, being part of that. A Christian, you're always learning old stories. So even to this day, I'm really interested in history. I love the ancient religions. I think they're going through so many of them now. I'm very positive about them because I think they have a lot of connections and things like that. And I'm not a religious theologian or anything, but that's given me perspective. But yeah, that's the Christian upbringing.
So if I can ask you, well, one thing is if you can just check your volume is a little bit low. If you can get a little bit closer to the mic, maybe. Some people are saying. Now, I want to ask you.
Because I was wondering about that. I did get a brand new microphone. It is pretty low, so I'm going to turn it right up.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so while you're doing that, I want to ask you, when you say, Protestants, they go directly on the Bible, are you saying the kind of like Salafis? Like because I don't understand how anyone can interpret the Bible directly. It's like, there's a lot there. Right? There's a lot.
No, I would say it's something that doesn't exist in Islam yet. I would say it's more like a Quran only movement. Like if there was a Quran only Islam, that would be like a Protestantism. And
really?
To Orthodox Muslims right now, they're probably like, "What? Come on, you can't have Quran only." And that's what the movement felt like at first, in the 14. So all these hundreds of years later, the Bible only people have kind of, they make sense. But there's still this question of where do you get the authority to say that you can only use the Bible? So. And yeah, that's the problem with Protestantism is you have all these interpretations. So I think with your Salafi buddies and stuff, you can get a very set interpretation, right? You can't really deviate from it. So it's a tough comparison. Like people criticize the comparison, but I think it's a decent one. And the microphone should be nice and hot right now. I'll get a little closer too.
Yeah, it's pretty loud now. I hope it's not clipping, but unfortunately, there's no way for me to check this. Yeah, I've just maybe a little bit lower. So okay, there we go. So that's
we're hitting the sweet spot now.
And now it's okay. Yeah, hopefully that's better now. We'll find out what they say. So okay, here we go. So that's Protestantism. That's baptism. So you grew up in a Baptist church, which is you said Protestant, and that actually how did that affect and how did that lead you to Islam? How did you end up Muslim?
Yeah, now this is the good one because and this is why even after leaving Orthodox Islam, I'm still very appreciative of some of the ways that Islam approaches certain theological teachings, and especially the way the Quran teaches things, because Christianity, no matter how pissed off people get in the chat, the Trinity, you have no good explanations for the Trinity. Zero, zilch, nada. Don't give me the apologetics. You don't have a good explanation for the dualistic God and things like that. And me, I think one of the curses of my life, whoever created me, is I'm too curious. So I'm always asking the question why. And as a Christian, it's not a question that when you ask, you usually get a lot of quote unquote logical answers for. Now, every religion is gonna be kind of devoid of logic, right? But for Islam does have this air of proof and things like that. And we talked about that in the first interview. But, I grew up a Baptist Christian, and that is a very conservative form of Christianity. And but I enjoyed the upbringing. To this day, I talk to my mom and thank her for it. We went to church and went to the youth group and things like that. I read the Bible, things that it kept me pretty clean in high school, which I like. I wasn't because I had a religious upbringing, I was sneaking out and stuff like that. Work ethic, things like that. But there's also growing up, my parents had maybe some questionable views about gays, things like this. So there's always each of these viruses in each religion, right? So for me, theologically, Christianity, my whole life was just something I grew up in, and I kept asking the questions, and I wasn't getting the answers. So I fell into Islam for me through a search, and we'll get to that. But no, I think Islamic theology, that's the whole point. It reels you in with the simplicity. Islam is simple. Islam is easy. And it's always designed to reel in Christians. That's the whole point of the movement from day one, is to reel in Christian. I mean, so if you haven't grown up Christian, then you might not even understand the perspective, because there's talking points in the Quran designed for Christians. So that's why it's a certain snake oil, and that's a lot of its converts. So that's
the majority, right?
Yeah, it is. And it works. The Dome of the Rock. That's the whole point of it, is to turn people away from the Trinity and come to the one God.
You
Now,
know,
well, what happens after the one God? Well, we'll figure that out. And for me, it took years and years later to figure out. I mean, about a good 6 years for me.
it's
So
interesting that when you talk about like when I was Muslim, I knew two, two, two Hindu converts, just two of them. That's it. But I knew like a ton of Christian converts, like a ton. There's like so many of them, and many famous ones too, like Hamza Yusuf, Bilal Phillips, and the list goes on and on, right? There's like Abdul Rahim Green, and like I can just keep naming Christian converts to Islam. But with Hinduism, there's only a couple. And it's interesting that this religion, which claimed to be sent to the pagan Arabs, the polytheists, it's very ineffectual against polytheists. It just doesn't have that impact. It just people don't like very rarely will leave Hinduism and become Muslim. And I'm a witness to that in my life. I can only think of two people I know that used to be Hindu. And when I met them, I was like astounded, like, wow, you used to be Hindu, like, and you became Muslim. That's amazing. I don't know anyone like that. And then I met one more. So like I said, I know two of them, but it's not a very common experience. Why do you think, like, you actually kind of explained it, I think, when you said that it has talking points for Christians right in the religion, right?
Yeah.
I always, I found it interesting what Karen Armstrong said about the Trinity. She's a, quite the apologist, and she's like, the Trinity, by its definition, is supposed to be incomprehensible.
See, stuff like that is for even when I was a 10-year-old kid, I would add stuff like that is the typical Christian mantra.
Yeah. And she was
I
saying,
hate
like,
that
if you look at Zen Buddhism creates the same type of the same type of ideas where there's like a puzzle that you cannot solve, and you're supposed to like bust your head trying to like comprehend this thing that's incomprehensible. So in the same way, she's saying that this kind of defines God. God is something that you can never really define or understand or comprehend. But when it comes to the appeal of one versus Trinity, I agree with you that.
Well, God needs to be incomprehensible, right? But we don't need an arbitrarily created Trinity to add to that complexity. And that's the thing. And me coming to Islam gave me a clearer perception of that God. And I kind of got into, people talk about the Sufi path and things like that and music. And I have for me, a clearer vision of the divine because of that, because I don't have to waste time with the Trinity. So God is incomprehensible, whatever you believe that is. The mysteries are incomprehensible, but we don't have to add new mysteries like the Trinity or the mystery of 19 or the mystery of Quranic Arabic or the mystery of Jewish history or the mystery. The mystery is the God itself. That's enough. So that's when you get to it. But Christian they love to hide behind the mysteries, right? And at least Islam tries to do the history and the science and the language. It's funny to watch them dance around these things, and they try to do those explanations. But for my brain, it worked. And when you read the Quran, Abdullah, the Christian to Islam connection, it's very obvious. It's like reading the first 6 books of Harry Potter, and then you finally get to read the 7th. When you read the Quran, after studying the Bible as much as I did for 20-something years, and you read the Quran, it's like, oh, I mean, it's all the same stories, it's the same characters, but it presents a very logical, it's almost addressed to Christians. And at the time, it's addressed to Christians and Jews. It's, oh man, Jesus is here, Jesus, yeah. And it's like, it challenges. I mean, these are all biblical stories. Now, it's funny because I'm glad that I studied the Bible for so many years, because the little snippets you get in the Quran, you don't have any fucking clue or forgive my French, I swear a lot. You don't give any damn clue what's going on, because Abraham, Noah, it's all over the place. The Bible, I'm happy to get that systematic approach. Yeah. And then when I read the Quran, it made a little more sense to me. So that's why I think even as ex-Muslim, you leave as a study, when you study the Bible with the Quran together, you get a very clear perspective, and you get a very fun understanding about it when you read them together. And I think a lot of Muslims don't really read the Bible besides apologetics websites, and a lot of Christians don't read the Quran besides apologetics websites. And when you do end up reading them together after, I'm almost at, I'm at decades in each religion, it really starts to make a lot of sense. And that's what Gabriel Side Reynolds does. He's, I guess, he's a practicing Catholic, not dogmatic and stuff, but his his idea is to combine the Quran and Trinity, and man, it makes a lot of sense. The Quran and Trinity, the Quran. Sorry, I was reading the Quran and the Bible. It
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
when you put them together. So that's the talking points worked for me, and I know any Christian convert would probably tell you the same. And the Quran has got its share of mysteries as well. Every scripture does, right? But
Yeah. And it's interesting that it is actually, like you said, what I think is when you actually start looking into the details, that's when it starts to fall apart. On a surface level, I feel like Muhammad had access to certain mythology, and especially Jewish mythology. So the backstory. I think when it comes to Jesus, that's when it starts to kind of fall apart. And when you look into it in detail, the whole thing about the Injil of Isa, which is like one Injil, it starts to feel like Muhammad didn't really understand that there was 4 Injils. There was 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They were not, and this is Christianity we're talking about, right? And so this is what defined by Christianity.
Well, there isn't 4 Gospels. There's one Gospel. There's 4 books. So the one Gospel is the message of Jesus. The Gospel is the message. The Gospel is that this prophet messenger Jesus came to the earth to provide this message, and the Christians debate on what the message is. The 4 books are just books. I mean, they call them the gospel, but these are just books. These are mushafs. It's like the Quran is the recitation, the mushaf is it's just 4 books, but the gospel is the message of Jesus. So I believe the translation of that Injil is that message. And what is the message of all these prophets? God.
Yeah.
Just worship God. And
but that's what I think it kind of falls apart, because
so that's a misunderstanding. So that probably came from your days as a Muslim,
reading
about Christian books, right? So that's
but in Christianity, what we have is we have 4 Gospels, even if it's one Gospel, which is the message that Jesus died for your sins. It was never a revelation to Jesus. So this is the kind of fundamental difference between what Islam says and what Christianity says. In Christianity, what we're talking about is 4 of the disciples or 4 Greek authors that are writing about Jesus. So these canonical Gospels, which is basically the foundation, the New Testament, the foundation of Christianity, is not a revelation, a book sent to Jesus. In Islam, there's the Zabur, the Injil, the Torah, and the Quran, and these are the 4 books that are mentioned that are revealed books, like revelation. Now, Jesus, if he had a revelation, an oral recitation like the Quran that was revealed to him called the Gospel, first of all, it's ironic that it's called the Gospel, whereas Christians also have something called Gospels, which is plural, which is about Jesus, not to Jesus or not from Jesus. So if you look at it from a Muslim perspective, the Muslims almost think like there's another Quran that was sent to Jesus, and that Quran was called the Gospel. So it's almost too convenient that the word is the same word, the Gospel versus the Gospels. It's almost like Muhammad maybe heard something from the Christians and thought, okay, there's a gospel, but he kind of missed the point that it's not. You could be right. Maybe it refers to, and now Muslims will say, like I've talked to Muslims about this. Muslims say that the Injil was lost, that it was an oral recitation, and there's no. And some of them will even go so far to try to reconcile Christianity with Islam, and they'll say, well, the Q source. Have you heard about the Q source?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll say
the Q source definitely has to exist, probably in a historical theory for sure.
And the Q source is the source of, if I remember correctly, the two Gospels, which are almost the same, which is Luke and
Matthew and Mark. Yeah, the first two Gospels are apparently pulled from the same source, same as like an Isnad chain, or it's the same Bible stories, and that's the whole idea. Is you could read all these 4 Gospels, but they have the same stories, but they're very contradictory.
So here's the thing. If you look at the Q source, again, it doesn't match what the Quran is saying, because the Q source is the source of the 2 canonical Gospels, which are very similar, but the story is almost the same, like point by point. Again, that doesn't match what we have in Islam. And there's another big thing to me, which I only found this out when I was leaving Islam and I was watching David Wood and Sam Shamoun, and they were pointing out these things. And I'm like, hey, these are good points, which I've never heard before, because I was going by the Ahmed Didat, Zakir Naik. I will pay you $100 if anyone can say where Jesus is God in the Bible.
Yeah.
And of course, there's like tons of examples in the Bible where it like clearly says Jesus is God. For example, John 3:16. Like, come on, like so when I started reading Bart Ehrman, I started to get a much better understanding of how Islam was truly a different sort of, I don't want to say perversion, but like the stories in Islam have changed from Christianity in a way that doesn't make sense. And I started to notice these things because I knew the Islamic side very well. Now that I was hearing from like Christians like David Wood, who actually study Islam, and also from Bart Ehrman, who doesn't know anything about Islam really, but he was presenting it in a way that actually started to like fire off like things in my head. Like, for example, the fact that, in the Bible, there's a clear sort of progression of Jesus, and of course it's very, very controversial, but there's low Christology to high Christology. High Christology is John. Low Christology is Mark, where Jesus basically, when he dies, he becomes God. Whereas in John, he is God, like from the beginning, right? So in the middle, you have the virgin birth, right? I think Luke, right? In Luke, you have the virgin birth. So it's interesting that Muhammad actually took the virgin birth into Islam, but this was not part of the oldest gospel that came in the. So you start to see things like this, and you start to realize that Islam, when you actually dig into the details about Christianity, it does get a lot of the details completely wrong, and it really does feel like Muhammad had some idea, but not a very good understanding of Christianity, because
you could tell that when you read the Quran. You could tell that there's a sort of a clue, but there's mostly a clueless person writing this. I mean, you could tell that. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt.
But when it comes to Judaism, like freaking Moses is mentioned in the Bible, in the Quran, more than Muhammad.
Yeah.
Like it's all over the Quran. There's Moses and so obviously in Medina and maybe in Makkah, I don't know, he had access to these stories, right? In some form, Waraka, his basically his wife's.
I guess, man, but I don't buy it. I think a lot of this is conspiracy theory, man. I don't think he had access to really any gospel or book.
I think the hadith said no, not necessarily.
But you know me, man. I don't trust any of these hadith. I think Muhammad was a very unique figure. He wasn't epileptic or anything. I mean, he had a unique message, and he had a message that competed against many other prophets. So, I mean, it wasn't, and this is where we're definitely going to clash a little bit, because he didn't steal anything from Christianity. He didn't steal anything. The gospel is exactly what Muhammad preached. That's exactly what the Injil, there was, of course, there's no books there. The gospel that Jesus preached was to worship your God, and that's it. So the gospel that Muhammad preached was to worship your God. So but these are all these, and that's the thing. I'm just a musician. That's the thing. So we don't, all these theological points are theological, and it shows us that the more that men get involved in these religions and more interpretations get involved, that's when all these little debates happen, and even all the things you brought up, Christians can have counterpoints to that. For example, you can argue a high Christology in the book of Mark as well.
Yeah,
Dr. James White can do it. So all these things have interpretations and points and workarounds, but I do think a lot of that Quran was pulled from somewhere, and Ibn Warqa kind of came and just taught everything. I think there's a lot of unique Islamic doctrines that you get, and that's why it's very attractive.
So yeah, if you don't accept the hadith that Warqa was translating the Bible into Arabic, that's fine. That I don't know how strong the hadith is, but in general, if you just look at how religions form, I mean, they are a game of telephone. Like you literally have, and we know that from the Quran, we have evidence that let's say the Judaism and the Christianity that existed in Arabia was not Orthodox Christianity of today.
Absolutely.
Because first of all, the Quran misses a huge theological point, which is it doesn't mention the Pope. The Catholic religion, which is the biggest sect of Christianity, even before Muhammad's time, there's no mention of a Pope. It's just like Muhammad didn't know about it. Obviously, he didn't know about it. He knew about what he knew about, which was these heterodox, like sort of radical, like any game of telephone. By the time it got to Arabia, it's changed.
Really out there Christians, like like
Yeah.
Jesus was a mushroom kind of
Yeah.
Christians. I mean, these are Arabs. I mean, they're we're not. These are oral traditions. These are oral stories. You could tell by the first histories of Muhammad, like how they tell stories and what kind of Christian,
So,
But
like a
by
good
the way,
example.
do you know I was named after a pope? I just want to tell you
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's an Italian thing.
So if you look at one example, there's one clear example. To me, this is enough to show that Islam is false. Just one example. The
Okay.
Quran says in, I don't remember the verse, but it says the Jews have committed blasphemy because they say Uzair or Ezra is the son of Allah. Now, it's hilarious because there is no freaking Jew on the entire planet Earth that has either ever said that Uzair or Ezra is the son of God, and there's no Jew that even knows where this came from. Like, I have scoured the internet, and Muslims have too, because they're trying to resolve this. Why does the Quran say that Jews say that Uzair is the son of Allah? And Jonathan Brown actually has an article where he tries to reconcile this. So the best explanation we have is there's two possibilities. Now, one of them is what he says, which is there was a sect of Jews that said this. The other possibility, which I think is hilarious, now this is what you call conspiracy theory, but I'm just going to say it because it's so funny.
Yeah, go for it, man. We're just shooting the shit here.
Is the Jews tricked Muhammad into thinking that's what they believed. His Jews at his time, they told him, they're trolling him, like, yeah, we worship Uzzah. And then he put it in the Quran. That would have been the most genius trolling of all history.
When I started getting into this kind of hadith isnad stuff, which is the real reason I left Islam, I was surprised to see how many people would throw out hadith because of like Jewish conspiracies like this. Like, Jewish conspiracy is always the answer. But dude, I can give you another answer for that, right? Well, I'm not a theologian, but that's the reason when Jonathan Brown and all these people and people, you're not a scholar. When you're stuck with the scholars, you're stuck with these issues. But if you just use your head, maybe Muhammad was just using a figure of speech. Done. It's explained. So that's the thing. And that's why it could be like, if I'm an Arab trying to convert people, man, these Jews, they're worshiping Ezra over here. These Christians, they got three gods. Mary's over here. Come on, follow me. I believe in one God. I would have probably said the same figure of speech. That's exactly what we do on Twitter. So that's a rationalist interpretation. But we don't have a form of Islam like that today so that's how I think. So that right there is an explanation right there. But if you're stuck with Salafi and stuck with your priest and your imam, you're stuck with those answers. But what do you think about that answer? Does that explain it? It's just Muhammad had a figure of speech?
No, because the Quran actually, that's a good answer. But the problem is the Quran actually corners itself because it says the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, like the Christians say Jesus is the son of Allah. So it actually...
It's an even better figure of speech. That's something Trump would do right now. Instead of the Mexicans and the Muslims, you have the Mexicans and the Muslims. Boom, call it a good speech.
No, because with the Christians, it's literal. So it actually corners itself into a literal interpretation. So of course, Jonathan Brown and others have said that there was a sect of people. My issue is the Quran says the Jews. It doesn't say the Arabian Jews, this tribe of Jews, the Banu whatever, Qainuqa or Banu Qurayza. No, it says the Jews. So now Muslims are stuck with this issue where now you don't even need hadith. Right there, the Quran itself is in a contradiction. And like you said,
I think it's a contradiction, though, man. I think if you're stuck to the school of having to learn 10 years of Arabic and stuff, and I respect those scholars a lot. I follow them on Twitter. I like Islamic scholarship. I think it's very unique. I think it's very flawed, but I think it's very fun. But if you follow those scholars, you're stuck, man. But didn't I just give you an answer right there that you could just, if you're a rationalist, and if we were in the 15th century, you and I would be very welcome in the mosque to sit and have this conversation right now, and I would probably be considered a Muslim. I mean, because that was just a didn't I just give you an interpretation? No,
I don't.
But if I said that in the mosque today, I would be just a white hippie. Get the hell out of here, Gora Saab. Get out of here, But that's how I think, man, and that's how Muslims have thinked in the past. But we're stuck with Salafism. We're stuck with Farid. We're stuck with Hadith. I mean, come on. Islam is. You're going to disagree, but Islam is a beautiful religion at heart, and the Sufis got attached to Islam for a reason. Like, there's a reason why, the one God and dhikr and prayer, and there are universal principles there that are good, but these freaking scholars and their hoity opinions, that's when Muslims get stuck. But use your own brain like the Quran tells you to, like your humanity tells you to, I think you can work around these issues because, man, the Quran's not going away. Islam's not going away. Christianity's not going away. So eventually all Muslims are going to think this way. Eventually all Muslims are going to read the Quran and talk about killing Christians, and they're going to be like, yeah, whatever. Today, I don't think a lot of them are there. I don't want to generalize. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of literal interpretation, but there wasn't a point when Christians thought that way as well. So I think that's a pretty decent answer, though. But I think it might be a dumb excuse, but can't you just say that that was just a figure of speech? And
yeah. So we'll leave that aside. We'll agree to disagree on that. But I'm also going to disagree with you that Islam
is Friday. It's a khutbah. Can I turn my camera off real quick, man, and get my imam hat?
Yeah.
I will be. If you want to do a little monologue, turn my camera off. I'm gonna get my imam hat.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. So while we're waiting for John, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of a plug for his channel. John has a YouTube channel which I have linked in the description box as well, but I'm just gonna share it as well on the screen so you guys can see it. He also has a Twitter account which you guys can follow him on. And I'm just going to say, while I'm waiting for John to come back, like, I'm just going to praise him a bit because we were having a conversation. We become friends on Twitter and on, we chat privately as well. And I was just telling John that I really appreciate what he's doing, that he's, like, coming out as an ex-Muslim with your real identity is not an easy thing to do. It is a very difficult thing to do when you actually are putting yourself out there. You're saying, this is me, and I left Islam. I mean, just imagine what kind of world we live in where someone can, someone like me that was a born Muslim, I kind of converted because I changed sects from Ismaili to Sunni. But like, I came out and I'm saying I left Islam and how tough that is. And someone like him, imagine someone like him that was even less in the Muslim community than I was, in a sense. In some ways, he was more in the Muslim community because he went to Pakistan, and we're going to talk about his trip to Pakistan. But like, someone that was a Muslim for just a few years, can you imagine that even for someone like that to come out and say, well, I don't like Islam, or Islam is false, or there's these issues with Islam, but I do like Islam, maybe he does like Islam. That's damn tough. That is not easy at all. So I'm just sharing your channel, John, and I'm just showing them where you are and how they can find you.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing religion on the YouTube. I kind of tried. It didn't work out, but my Twitter is come there for YouTube, guys. It's a come to Twitter for religion. It's a firestorm and stuff. But yeah, if you're interested in my music, guys, I'd love you to find me on YouTube and stuff. But I can't do religion on my YouTube. It was probably not the best idea for me, but I love to come on as a guest. But
yeah,
thanks for the plug, man. I wanted to get my hat, do a bismillah.
Okay, I'm gonna share it on.
Brought my books.
All right, there we go. So there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, find me on Twitter, guys. I'm very busy. It's getting a little hard, but it's fun.
Okay.
I've gotten the Hindu Tava mob the past couple of
days.
The
Hindu Tava, yeah.
We'll get there.
Before we talk about that, and before we talk about because we're on the topic, and
what were we talking about?
Before we talk about this, I have to completely disagree with you that Islam is a beautiful religion. I think Islam is an ugly religion, and I think it's full of horrible, nasty, teachings that. Now here's where if I'm talking to my wife, for example, she would say like, yeah, but there's also beautiful things, and I'll be like, well, there's beautiful things in all religions. And for example, if you had a man that was a good man, he works hard, takes care of his family, but he also beats his wife every day, let's say, you wouldn't say that's a good man. You'd say that's a bad man. You'd look at the worst thing he does and you say that's a bad person. So Islam is bad because, now if you want to take out the hadith, that's a different story. But with the hadith, Sunni Islam, Orthodox Sunni Islam is a terrible religion, not because it asks Muslims to go around killing people, although some people do take it to that extent, like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, whatever. But just from the perspective of it's a man-made religion that's a mishmash of paganism, of Judaism and Christianity, and it contains a lot of bad ideas. Certain things don't make any sense. Certain things that are missing that would have made sense. For example, banning cousin marriage, Muhammad, and for example, allowing child marriage is another issue with Islam. There's just so many bad ideas in Islam, which are not necessarily unique only to Islam, and I'm sure you'd find them in other religions as well, to more or less extent. For example, the terrorism thing is a major fucking problem with Islam because it just keeps happening over and over again. Someone like you, but not you, thankfully, could end up from the middle of nowhere in a white rural town where there's no Muslim, can become Muslim and end up joining ISIS. And that's what happened. That's what happened to one of the chief leaders of ISIS, was this white guy that converted to Islam. His mom bought him a Quran. His name is John, I forget, I think his name is John as well, huh? Not John
DelVento?
DelVento.
Sorry.
The former husband of Tanya
Okay. All
Joya,
right. All right.
and he got radicalized to become the leader of ISIS. So I think there's just a lot of really terrible ideas in Islam. If Islam was a peaceful religion, for example, like Jainism, what we find is extremist Jains, they fast and they die from fasting. Like they're so extreme in the fasting that they die. They don't kill, they don't bomb, they don't blow up planes and things like that.
Okay. Whoa. Calm down for a second. Calm down for a second. Wait. No, all right. So here's the thing. So much there, man. So let me do an analogy first because I'm just an American. All right. So America is an idea. It's an ideology. So I'm here in America. So in the name of America, millions of people have died. Millions of people have been burned alive, tortured. In the name of America, people have been locked up. Racism, Jim Crow, riots on the streets. In the name of America. In the name of America, we've also created a country where we wrote a constitution in 1791 with a Bill of Rights, with freedom of religion, freedom of press. The idea of America is so awesome. In the name of America, we've gone to Latin America and have tried to help with wars. We've done a little more harm than... So is the issue that ideas are good or bad, or is the issue that humans are good and bad and ideas are always going to... And I'm not one of these dancing, Reza Islam apologists like you on Twitter. I'm go straight at ISIS. I straight against ideology, things like that. But I don't think we can say that the idea is bad, because what's bad there is, I mean, we can't say that the idea is good or bad. The idea is an idea. It's good. I mean, it's an idea. That human John is bad. I mean, that human John. I mean, and then we get into...
You can say ideas are bad. Why can't you say ideas are bad? Like, for example, FGM is bad. Child marriage is bad. Those ideas.
I mean, what's bad? I mean, so you could say it's destructive.
Like harmful,
you could say people die from it. You could say, like, is America bad? I guess. Is America good? I guess. But what's the measurement? I mean, America, you can make a hell of a lot of money. You can come in. You can generally get a job anywhere you want. I mean, but, there's a lot of issues here. You go to Pakistan. I love it in Pakistan. It's great. I think it's a great country. I go anywhere. I get chai. I get soda. But hey, if I'm an Ahmadiyya, I might get my head shot by a 16-year-old kid from a Twitter mob. So if we're just going to do ideas are good and bad, we're stuck. We still have kids arguing if communism is good or bad. I mean, so this is just this nonsense, unproductive dialogue. I mean, no offense, but also... I think it just comes to a different... And my thing is, I left Islam for my own reasons, and I didn't intend to attack and say, like, I'll attack the idea. I'll attack it, and I'll say, because of Islam, there are significant issues of women's rights in the overall Muslim world. Because of certain Islamic interpretations, there are the rapes and stuff like that. How am I going to say it's bad or good? I mean, and then they're going to come back with these who are you to say? So I can give talking points, and I could also provide a positive change that inside Islam, I have a whole book right here, and these are interpretations. I have a whole book right here. It's called Islam on Mercy and Compassion. And, if you're a Muslim hater, you probably don't want to hear this, but I'll tell you, and Abdullah will tell you, and AP will tell you exactly where the bad hadiths are and the bad ideas and all these things. But, like any idea, you have some good stuff, and ideas are ideas. They're not going to go away, unfortunately. I mean,
I think they will.
Capitalism isn't the best idea. It's always going to be here. But yeah, I mean, one day Islam will go the way of the Roman religions and the Greek religions. I mean, in 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years, maybe these things will be gone. But in our lifetime, we're always going to have Islam. In our parents' lifetime, they're always going to. So, in the past 30 years, we've had a lot of these issues, but if you go to the Middle East in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, we were doing all right here. So it's not like we're asking for a whole thing. So I fell victim to I think you're mischaracterizing a lot, and I found myself falling into that characterization for a good portion of my life, and I'm thankful that I was able to travel to the Muslim world, and especially as an American, I'm thankful that I kind of fell into Islam, because I believe that type of, I would call it ignorance, is very rampant among a lot of people. And I'm going to be interviewing somebody soon that I think has been a very big purveyor of that type of thinking. His name's Robert Spencer. And I don't blame it. After 9/11, like, we didn't know what was going on. But I think this whole characterization of Islam is an inherent bad religion is tough, because we just had this Hindu mob come in, and then we get to this point of, who are we to say? So I'll tell you, there's bad ideas and there's things that disturbed me in the religion. But when I read the Quran, I don't know, man. I'm
Yeah.
fine. When I read the Bible, I'm fine. I think the nicest people are usually the moderate religious people in your neighborhood, no matter what they believe. And,
Yep.
we could agree to disagree. I can understand that you have a different perspective. I wasn't born Muslim. I'm not a woman. So I wasn't born in the Middle East, but I also have my own perspective. And I've also seen a side of Islam that I think a lot of people in the Middle East wish they had access to. And and that's when I talk to these Indians, I'm like, guys, there is you can make it happen.
Yep.
It's here. I experienced it. So that's my perspective. We could debate. I'll shut up.
So a couple of things. On what basis? Obviously, you're right. You made a very good point on just saying it's bad. What does that even mean? Yeah, and from my perspective, I'm talking about from the humanistic perspective, from the perspective of science and progress, and growth and personal freedom. For example, my wife, who was Muslim, had to wear this thing on top of her head, and she felt that if she didn't wear it, she would be sinful. And I told her she needs to wear it as well. And, covering her up, even when she went to the beach, for example, everybody else is just dressing how they want. And she grew up, wearing bikinis and whatever. And then she was told now that she cannot do that anymore. So she would get sweaty and hot. And it reduces the quality of life for Muslims. Bro, I missed out on buying. Let's use my friend's example. My friend is a successful software developer, makes 6 figures. He lived in Toronto, in the city of Toronto, downtown. His kids grew up in Toronto. He was renting. He could never buy a house on a 6-figure fucking income. And now he ended up buying a house for cash. He saved money to buy a house in the middle of, freaking, I'm not going to say the name of the city, but it's like around 100 kilometers away from downtown. And of course, he's going to adjust. He's going to get used to it. He has a house. There's so many people who are not in that situation of making 6 figures, probably $200,000 a year salary he was making. He was loaded and don't have the ability to save up cash, and they'll never buy a house. I wasn't able to buy a house because it was haram, and it was considered worse than zina, worse than adultery. So I could either cheat on my wife or buy a house. And according to Islam, Sunni theology, not just Salafi, but even just Sunni, general Sunni, it's worse than zina. So cheating on my wife would be better than buying a house. Like, imagine the craziness of that thinking. But yet that's what I did. I didn't buy a house because I didn't want to cheat on my wife. I mean, it's worse than cheating on my wife, right? So I just think that religion in general, whether it's Islam or Hinduism, I'm going to say Hinduism because I see some like Hindus in the crowd too that are like cheering on. Yeah. And the difference, I think, when you say that America does a lot of bad things, I think we can condemn those bad things too, that America is doing bombing innocents with drones. I mean,
it's
not
just bad things. We condemn the things, man. We condemn the things. And you're talking about things, So you can make these points that in Islam has this teaching about interest. This relates to this. I'm a musician, professional musician. This is what I do.
Music.
I'm not rich, but it's done well for me. I grew up poor, very poor, single mom. All right. But music did it for me. And I had these serious discussions like music is haram and stuff like this. But this is a point in Muslim countries. They might have issues with economic development so these are points. We don't have to say they're bad, but these are points we make,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the music thing. I mean, wasn't that like a personal issue for you too?
Yeah, I don't know where we wanted to go in the discussion. Like with that, I mean, I never took these tangential issues and made them a reason why I left Islam, but they were always in the back of my head. Like why I was doing this shit with my shoes, why I was doing shit with my hands. But I was lucky to fall into, the kind of the Sufi path where a lot of those questions just are a little bit easier to understand. Why do we pray like this? Why do we actually wake up at this specific time? I think the esoteric interpretations provide much more a comfortable explanation where you could just worship and do your rituals on your own, where you don't have to fear having to explain every goddamn thing because a scholar said so in every chain. So I was able to rationalize a lot of that, even though I didn't like it. So I could say, these idiots said music is haram because at this time, there were a lot of pagans that used to take their shirt off and do musical dances and do that kind of stuff, okay? So that's an interpretation. But today, they do it. But hey, if you're a religious person, and you're really worried about your chastity, you probably don't want to be, going out, to a concert with, some lady. I mean, I'm not a morality person, but these are where these interpretations go to. But in terms of Islam, I think music is halal if you just read the damn Quran. So but in the back of my head, I went to the mosque of the Qawwali. I went to Pakistan to study Qawwali. So we had no gripes about music. There's plenty. The Sunni monopoly is the issue, right? And growing up, I
Yeah.
always seen the imam on TV that with a big beard and stuff like that. You know, we saw the hijabi that was always a little standoffish, that she always wanted to, you know, the hijabi feminists that always had to find something wrong. You know, we never found the musical. Like, let's get Sami Yusuf on CNN for Christ's
Yeah.
sake. Let's get Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan out there. Let's get Imam Tawhidi back out there. You know what I'm saying? But let's get the diversity out there. So I think. Yeah, that's my boy. No, I'm kidding. So the Sunni monopoly is an issue. Like, Daniel Hakikachu has a voice, but that should be relegated to like Westboro Baptist Church of Islam. Why is that even anywhere near the normalcy? But that's what and that's kind of the reason why I left, is all these things in the back of my head started to come to the front of my head. And I said, I don't think overall this religion is in a place that's healthy for my brain right now, healthy for how I think, healthy for the way I think about people. I love the Sufism that I learned and the connection to the beloved and to experience the love of God and the music. But I don't know if I'm an atheist or whatever, but that's, you know, if I was in 15th century India, I would have probably a great time, light up a joint at a shrine, grab my tabla, you know, do a prayer, you know, maybe grab a couple ladies, have fun after, you know, that's, you know, that's what my crazy ideology is all about. And you can learn more about it at Twitter/DelVento time. But this is the path, guys, and I'm into many decades of my life, and I still have a lot more to learn. And I think that's the joy of living on this earth, is you have to learn and change your religion and things like that. And we have 11-year-olds on Twitter that think they have all the answers to everything, and it just makes me laugh. You know, I've changed so much, and you can criticize me for that, but I think I'm happy that I've been able to grow, and I'm happy to see what I believe in 25 years. You know, when we have a lab meet and stuff like that, you know, what kind of discussions we're going to have, and, you know, if we're going to be burying our ancestors in different ways in the future. Like, I'm excited to be able to change my views. Like, I don't know a damn thing about evolution and science. I'm learning things about science. So life is a journey. Books are beautiful. Your Salafi imam in the village doesn't have all the answers. So the Sufism has and this is why I love Pakistan and the Punjabi poets. The Punjabi Sufis were so great because they were just normal working class, simple people that didn't deal with politics and stuff. They just said, religion, us Sufis, we take the meat from all religion and we leave the bones. And when you're stuck with politics, like these caliphs, these hadiths, these are attached to politics. This is political drama.
Yeah.
And what do people do that talk about hadiths? Doesn't it feel like CNN? It feels like MSNBC, because it's politics.
Yeah.
That's politics. When you just get to the village of Pakistan and the working class people in my neighborhood that just want to worship and find their God, this is what it's all about. But with this terrorism and this Salafism and the stuff you deal with all day, and the left-wing people that give all these excuses, like, we haven't been able to progress in the way that, I mean, we're in 2020, and now the new generation of Muslims believe the complete opposite about blasphemy that they did. Like, what the hell? Salman Rushdie was in, 1988? And now we're in 2020. So I find the Muslim world going back in general, and I'm not judging you as the white guy. I've traveled. I've seen your land. I love your land. I respect it. I've changed my music theory my whole life because of it. I think everybody in the world has their own set of bias and ignorance, but I love the Islamic religion. I love the Christian religion. I love the Buddhist religion, the Hindu. I love the Marxists for creating the idea. Humans are beautiful for creating the ideas. I love the atheists for creating their ideas. The Sufis will pull something from all these ideas and use it for good.
Atheists just tear down ideas, actually.
Well, I guess the new standard, according to the Hindu Tava, is as long as you don't burn down a building, then you're good. So as long as you don't burn down a building, guys, you're okay. All right, so that's the new standard in 2020. As long as you don't rape a village and burn down everything, you're all good, right? So that's what we're dealing with. That's our standard. The bar is there.
Yeah, and just to make a point, and then let's talk about Pakistan, because I really love to hear about that. We didn't really talk about that in the last video either. In terms of hadith, it's not that the Sufis and the non-Salafis don't accept hadith, but what they've done is they found a way to reconcile the hadith in a way that is, you know, less problematic than, for example, Salafis are trying to bring the world back into the 7th century. You can say, like, literally, Salafis and Islamists, people like Hizb ut-Tahrir, Muslim Brotherhood, they want the will to go back to Medina, which is 7th century with, all of that stuff. Now you have people like Hamza Yusuf and these guys, who they don't use the word reform, and even Yasir Qadhi to some extent. What they're doing is they still believe in hadith. They believe in all the hadith, but they found ways to reconcile that. And if Mufti Abu Layth is a good example of this. What they do is they look at the goals or the maqasid of Sharia, which are the principles, the goals. And what are the goals? To preserve life, to preserve lineage. I forget what the other ones are. But anyways, the point is, based on that, they can say, well, these things, like, for example, killing apostates, that doesn't lead to preserving the deen. That's another one, preserving the religion. It's actually causing people to leave the religion more. So we don't need to do this anymore, because that's against the goals. And this sort of conflict of, like, the text of the books versus the goals, it goes back all the way to Muhammad's time, where there was an incident. I made a video on this, where Muhammad told them to do a specific thing. He said, don't pray until you get to Banu Qurayza. But then what happened was, a lot of them couldn't get there on time. So they had a big argument about what to do. And so they went back to him, and they're like, some of them ended up praying on time and ignoring what the prophet said. The other ones missed the prayer, and they went all the way to the Jewish tribe, and they prayed late. So when you have a religion, you're always going to have inherently contradictions. And some schools of thought, for example, the non-Salafis in particular, have found different ways around it, where they say that, for example, Allah's hands is his power, his throne is his dominion, and stuff like that. And so they have, like they're able to, some of them will allow music, although a lot of Sufis I know don't allow music. So it depends, I guess. So let's talk about that, because you have a very different experience as a Muslim than I do. Like, I never went to Pakistan. I went to, like, those type of masjids once in a while, mosques. But for you, this was your life. You were in, like, this, this sort of Sufi leaning, madhabis, tabligh. And tell us about Pakistan and, like, what the experience was, and how. I don't know any of this stuff, right? Like the kissing thing, and it's all bid'ah. I was on the true Islamic path, the Salafi.
Well, I think that the problem is the word Sufi and Sufism, of course. I think that's with any ism. I think the Hindus will say the problem with the debate is this word Hinduism that was created. So I think Western historians love to have an ism. They love to have a categorical thing. As a musician, there's a whole genre called jazz. And jazz is a music that was just created by black people in America. It was just created. It wasn't created in the university, but decades later, the music theorist had to come up with an ism. So we're just kind of stuck with jazz. So Sufism is an ism, and you'll hear people talk about the tasawwuf, and they were wearing potato sacks, and these silly explanations. The Sufism isn't a word. It's a decent, and you can always know someone who isn't a Sufi by if they call themselves a Sufi. That's if you actually have sat with a Sufi teacher, as I have, and any good teacher, Sufi has to. That's why I went to Pakistan, to actually sit in the Chishti. I was a Chishtiya Sufi, to actually sit and study myself and do the hours of dhikr and things like that, and actually understand it and do the music. So one of the first lessons you learn in any Sufi order is anybody that calls himself a Sufi is not a Sufi. So I use these terms because it's easy to, it's easy for everybody. But the problem is, of course, the term Sufism. So I think the easier word it's more of a panentheism. It's an esotericism. It's love. That's all it is, man. Everything is love. That's all it is. Imagine going back to when humans weren't able to recognize the words on this screen right now. Like, I wasn't able to see, like, what is this color? What is that? Like, imagine going back to the original, like, everything is love. So the idea of the Sufi, the esotericism, is that everything goes back to this love. Every question, every emotion, everything for humans that makes us unique is love. Every situation you approach with love. This stream with love. My interaction with this love. Every situation is love. So the Sufi believes that love is the proof of the divinity. The fact that love exists means that is the divinity. We don't have to understand, but the love is the divinity. That's what we can understand. We can understand love. Love is intoxicating. Before we could recognize words, before we knew what money was, love was what is everything. And we could access that as humans sometimes, but sometimes we have to experience things. So the Sufis will use music. They'll use alcohol. They'll use weed. They'll use the Quran because it's a beautiful recitation. They'll use the 5 prayers because it's full of discipline and it has similar. They'll use yoga. But to experience love is the secret. That's what Jesus wanted. Everything is love. You argue about the text, argue about the history, that's fun. But to experience the love is the journey. And it took me a while and I felt the Sufi path was a great way to get there. And I think you see that in India. You see that in the shrines. You see that in the culture. And to see where India and Pakistan have come is crazy, because India and Pakistan should be leading the world right now in terms of religious tolerance and secularism. Because when I study the Sufism of the subcontinent and the music and the unity, oh man, that's great. So I love it. I will just turn up my mic a little bit if it's a little low. Again, I've been upgrading my setup, folks. This is a new mic. I've just been a composer. I've just come out in basically 5 months talking about religion. So it's a brand new setup. So I'm going to turn the mic up a little bit. I'm sorry if you couldn't hear me, guys. That was my Friday khutbah right there for you.
So yeah, tell us about...
I'll take 3,000 rupees to PayPal, please.
So yeah, I want to hear more about Pakistan. I want to hear...
What do you think of love, Abdullah? When I say love, what do you think of? When the last time you felt love? When was the last time you actually felt love?
I think all of our emotions, whether it's love, whether it's anger, whether it's jealousy, guilt, greed, all of these emotions are evolved in us. You know, I'm going to go for the materialistic way because I'm an atheist. And I do think that the practical emotions that we have in order to survive, frankly speaking, like the fact that I love my kids means that I will make sure that anything happens, no matter what happens, my kids survive. And that's how humanity got to where we are today. If I didn't have this desire to make sure my kids survive, you know, the people who didn't have that sort of drive, they let the kids die and the genes were done. They never got passed on. So I think that love is something that we can sort of wax poetical on if you want to, and it is a very powerful feeling, and so are a lot of the other emotions. But I don't really have much more to say about it than that. It's just something that I think it's there for survival, but it's a very powerful emotion that's, that gives us, I guess it gives us meaning in some way.
Brother, I didn't ask you what your explanation of love was. I just asked you, when was the last time you felt love? You mentioned your kid. When's the last time you felt, I don't care about what the scientists say or the hippies have to say. When was it, whatever that's a separate. When's the last time you felt love? And how did it make you feel? That way, even if it's chemistry, if it's God, if it's Muhammad, if it's Mother Kamala or whatever it is, when's the last time you felt love, and how did it make you feel?
Like love for my kids, love for myself, even, love for this life. I'm happy with my life. I feel grateful that I have a life, that I am where I am today, that I'm, successful with the things that I'm doing that are important to me. Things are going well for me. So I feel love for there's a lot of examples.
So you think love, that's what the Sufi, we could give it an ism, but that's what it's about. So I just wanted to use that as an example. That's what a Sufi teacher would ask. That's the first kind of question that the Chisti teacher would ask. So welcome to my tariqa. You can join. It costs 300,000 rupees a month. I'm kidding. No, but that's the idea. And people think it's Sufism. I look it up on Wikipedia. Here's the history. They want to make it an Islamic sect because everybody wants the Sufis because the Sufis figured it out. So the Muslims want the Sufis. The Sikhs want the Sufis. Everybody wants, but the Sufis are sitting back just like, hold my beer, because we go straight. So Sufis love to watch these discussions about the Quranic variants and all these things and get into it and things like that. But the piece of love too loud. Oh man! So this is. I think it's a Hindu Tava conspiracy. I think they got into my audio. No, this is good because I'm going to remember these settings forever. So
see the levels. We'll have to talk to StreamYard about that. It'd be funny if I was in the.
Sorry about that, guys. I hope it's not interrupting your headphones or anything. I'm having a great time, man. It's a great discussion. I hope the audio is not significant, but we appreciate the feedback. I really do. It's
a little bit low. People just turn up a bit. Now, the funny thing is, if I was going to the Sufi order and I answered the way I did, they'd be like, "Get out, get out."
No, they'd give you a place. They give you a plate of food, man. They'd give you a plate of food, and they say, "All right, next lesson is, let's." Yeah, they give you a plate of food, man. Yeah. And the Chistis would give you a glass of wine, probably too.
So let's talk a little bit.
That's just my approach. That's my life. I'm just one weird guy here in New England. That's my life. That's the Islam I get. Now here's the thing. If I found the mosque that was literally 5 miles down the road, that whole story could have changed. I don't know where I could have ended up in Syria with the AK-47. I don't know. I could have ended up with 1 niqabi wife, 4 niqabi wives. But and the fact that Islam is in that point, that's very concerning to me. That means that the interpretations of the men are really important. That's what we see in Protestantism, which we're kind of get back to. Catholics have the joy of having a central pope and things like that, but Protestants have just a book and a bunch of minds to interpret it. So But that's the issue. I could have gone to a mosque that was 5 miles down the road that didn't want us singing any qasidas. That actually the reason that the mosque I went to exists is because that mosque kicked them out because they were a bunch of the Pakistani bid'ahs that did the mehfils in the mosque and did all these things and did all the bhangra and all this dancing. So that's the issue, is that if I went to the mosque down the road, I would have probably ended up like, what you usually see as a white convert in the UK, someone that
Oh my God.
is talking faux Arabic with the topi and the beard and has all the answers. And these are the kind of, and I'm talking about fluffy Islam and stuff like that. But this kind of a lot of white converts will end up in that type of situation. I don't want to generalize, but that's the reason why I don't want Hindus to be mad that we're talking about you. But there is a uniqueness of Islamic Sunni ideology that has a kind of an intoxication for violence, I think, and it's kind of always been there. And there is a uniqueness of that Muslim terrorism, and we're not denying that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the white converts like that, because it's that simplicity. But yeah, when you see some of these UK white converts, I'm thinking, damn,
Oh God.
I don't want to generalize, but I could have ended up like some of these. And I often think about that. How did Islam in America end up like this after 9/11? Like after Orlando, how did we end up with this? America's just at least did something right with this. Like we could have gone. Europe's having some issues right now. When I hear Europeans talk about Islam, I'm like, what the hell is Hitler running for office again? Like something like what's going on here? Like when I hear the Hindus talk about the Muslim, so I'm thankful that it ended up all right over here. But I think in some other areas in the UK, when I see some of the converts and things, I'm like, whoa. So I'm not going to say that fear is unwarranted, but man, because I could have ended up as one of those converts, because man, that mosque down the road, that's the Wahhabi, that's the Salafi mosque. I would have had the long white juba, I would have, so you never know. But I found the Pakistani mosque and they brainwashed me, and then I ended up like this.
Yeah. People, just a quick aside, you can actually be ex-Muslim. You can even be a never Muslim and still like certain things about Islam. This approach is the approach of I call him the grandfather of the ex-Muslim movement. One of them is Hassan Radwan. Hassan Radwan is one of the most polite, respectful people that, he's an ex-Muslim, but he says, I like these things about Islam, for example. And I have favorite verses from the Quran that, for example, be just even if it's against your own self. I don't know if that's a hadith. There's a Quran verse that says, when ignorance talk to you, when an ignorant person, a jahil, addresses you, you walk mercifully on the earth and you say salam, you say peace. Like, so there's beautiful things in Islam too. I'm not denying. I'm not saying, and John, people that are thinking he's not actually ex-Muslim, honestly, this is just it's stupid. Like, he doesn't believe in Islam. He can still like certain things, just like I like certain things about Islam. Now, of course, people are going to say I'm not Muslim either, because there's a certain group of people online we've been discussing with for the last few days.
Why would I don't fucking understand these people. So forgive my French. What? No. So I don't want to interrupt you. Is that what they're saying in the chat? That I'm not an ex-Muslim? Okay. Yep. People that think that, you are the problem.
Yep.
Okay? You are the problem. I want you in that chat too. It's not my job to explain your issue. You need to explain what about what I said makes you think that I'm not a legitimate ex-Muslim for you. What do you want me to do? You want me to whip up jihadwatch.org? You want me to do this stuff? Do you want me to be like David Wood and stuff? You prove it to me.
Yeah.
You're the part of the problem, because that's the thing, because you're blinded. You're blinded. You might think I'm a little out of the box, but guess what? I've seen a side of these things that I don't think a lot of people on this planet have seen. Now, I'm not trying to say that in an arrogant way. I'm just saying that maybe you're part of the problem. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about Robert Spencer, we're probably going to clash about this, because what you're doing by not thinking I'm a real ex-Muslim is here's what you want to do. You want me to bash Muslims, and I'll do it. I could eviscerate the Hadith literature. I'll talk about it. Look at all the. If you're a woman in Egypt, good luck. Good luck walking around. I talk to people on Yemen on my WhatsApp, Indonesia. I know what's going on there, but. What do you want me to do? That's what I'm talking. Are we not good enough for you? Are we not rude enough for you? I could tell you that. I ranted about the Hadith for you. Do you want me to tell you Muhammad's a rapist? Do you want me to tell you that Muhammad's a pedophile? Do you want me to do? That's the thing. So, Forgive me for getting a little fired up about that, but I am my own person. I could say whatever I want because I live in the United States of America. So you
Mhm.
could fuck off, whoever said that. Sorry.
No, it's a fair response because people, sometimes they like I said, there's some people, and especially people we've been discussing with from a certain country, India, that you can never be ex-Muslim enough unless you're pretty much, frankly hating Muslims. I mean, sorry to say that. I have an ex-Muslim friend from India, and he said there's some people out there, and there's a lot of them, and they are empowered. Just like you have some white, I don't want to get into politics, but there's certain groups that are feeling emboldened now because of certain governments that are in the world. In India, in the US, there's certain groups that are feeling empowered by the government, and even Brazil is another one that we have that issue now. And we wanted to talk about this, how there's been this sort of movement towards, like Wahhabism and the far right Hindu trolls that we're seeing online. There's so many of them. Whereas, maybe like so many few years ago, you would have had this different type of Islam that was more tolerant, with the Qawalis and all of that. But now you have this like hardline Islam spreading all over the world that wants to, like in Nigeria, and I have a video coming out on that, this Yahya Aminu Sharif, that he's a young 22-year-old Sufi guy that made a poetry or a song praising his leader of his Tijani sect, Tijani Tariqa, Sufi Tariqa, above the Prophet. So of course Sufis say all sorts of things, right? They say all sorts of. I went to a masjid once where the guy said all of the universe, everything in it, before and after, was made for the purpose of Muhammad.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
the love. That's ishq, man. That's the
Yeah.
That's the love. That's the way to get you to love, man. That's the way to convince a Muslim to experience the Sufi love. I don't want to interrupt, but that's what that thing is for. Is that the universe was created for this Muhammad? Like Muhammad came to give us so much, guys. So that's what it is, man. It's funny
It's a
Islam, right?
really different. So
Very different, right? So what happened, right?
There's definitely like a desire to put that Islam down, not just by some, but by non-Muslims that are opponents of Islam. They want Islam to be the worst possible thing so they can demonize it. Like, for example, certain people, and I'm going to say his name, Robert Spencer, he wants to demonize Muslims. And sometimes what he'll do is he'll like, and this is where I had a conflict with him, because he came across very fair to me in the beginning. He said, let's have a conversation. I said, let me see. And I did my research. I watched some videos and I looked up, and while I was doing my research, he came up with a tweet that, I mean, he does it all the time, but this is after I started following, where he said, Muslim man killed his wife in Netherlands, for example, or I forget, it was Netherlands, in some country, right? And I asked him, I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? Why are you posting Muslim man murdered his wife? I can give you, like you said in the beginning, a lot of Americans are doing bad things too. So do we post on a blog, look, American man killed his wife, therefore ... about America? Like, it's so stupid, right? The logic. So I'm just saying, okay, what does this have to do with Islam? That's all I said. And these people, what they do is they try to hide the bigotry under the guise of I'm criticizing Islam, right? I'm talking about Islam. So, but I'm like, well, what does that have to do with Islam? You have spousal abuse, and Islam doesn't allow you to kill your wife. It allows you to beat your wife. Yes, going to Quran 434, certain scholars allow that, but killing is not allowed. You're not allowed to kill your wife by any means. If this guy was in an Islamic state, he could be executed actually for doing this. Yet he's putting on jihad watch. Hey, look at this jihadi killing his wife. And we had a conflict about that. So I think that there's people that they want to, and which is why sometimes I come across as an apologist for Islam. When I say Islam doesn't say you can kill your wife, people get angry at me and they're like, why are you defending Islam? I'm like, I want to be a fair opponent of Islam. I don't want to demonize people. I don't want to make Islam look like the worst possible thing, so that people like Anders Breivik will go and shoot down innocent Muslims and kill them in cold blood because he's scared that these evil Muslims are coming and they're going to ruin the society. And that's the path of evil. When you have someone like Hitler, what he did, and this happened with the Burmese towards the Muslims as well, where they start with the rumors. They're like, oh, they're stealing our jobs. They're taking our women, they're rapists, they're this and that. So they start with these rumors, right? And they demonize the people to the point where eventually it becomes okay to just kill them. And I'm sure that Robert Spencer is not okay with this guy killing Muslims, but frankly speaking, it's on his conscience, because his whole career is built on demonizing Muslims. And not like the reason why I'm still ex-Muslim and some of my friends will not call themselves ex-Muslim is because they don't want to be associated with this crowd that wants to like basically demonize Muslims. And you are feeling angry too, because you're also getting this sort of reaction from people. But if you defend anything about Islam and you say, well, look, there's some beautiful things, Islam, oh, you're not an ex-Muslim, you're a closet. I've been called a closet jihadi these last few days. How am I a closet jihadi?
You're doing taqiyya.
Taqiyya is the common one. Closet jihadi is another one. And so
Can I answer the wife beating thing real quick first?
Sure.
So the Sufi thing, real easy, even a joke. A Sufi reads that, they say, man, the Arabs were a little rough in that time. Today, we're not going to do that.
That's fine.
That's it, man. That's it. So that's like, you don't have to do chains. You don't have to do isnad. You don't have to do it. So that's like, but that's just, I just wanted to interject with that because, dude, this is a great discussion, man, because here's the thing. I think a lot of those people think they're necessary and they think they're doing good. But, you know, and they think, who are you to come at it from an American? I can tell you, I've lived through this exact thing. Like after 9/11, they were pulling Sikhs out of the taxi cabs and beating the shit out of them because they had a turban. So, I mean, we know what this come. I mean, they were lynching blacks in America. I'm an Italian. The Italians had the number one. They were the biggest single day of lynching in American history was Italians because Italians were Catholic. And Catholic was this strange, I mean, JFK, the big issue with JFK was he was a Catholic. They didn't know what the hell this religion was. So we know about this stuff, guys. And I'm telling you, you can criticize bad, and we can dovetail the conversation to how do we criticize Islam. And that's where I think I'm giving you the decent answer as well. I mean, come to me for everything, guys. I'll give you all the answers to life. No, I'm kidding. But how do we criticize Islam? My path and my belief, and it's done, I don't care about growing my Twitter or whatever, but I think I've found very decent success in my small area is to criticize hadith and to criticize epistemology. And that's the way to do it. And in a couple months, we've opened up a discussion about Quran preservation in manuscripts that has been so productive and have actually done something versus Robert Spence. I don't want to demonize the guy who's probably going to watch this and doesn't want to do my interview, but that approach, and I know that approach exists and they have a right to exist and they think they're doing something well, but that approach, I've seen it my whole life. I remember this stuff in the 80s. I remember, you know, us arming the Afghans. I've heard about the evil Muslims and this. We have heard. I mean So that's the kind of stuff. It's not going to get you anywhere, but it exists. I understand how it's intoxicating. That's how Trump won the election.
Oh yeah.
That's how Bolsonaro won I mean, it's a political tactic that works. If you want to become a political leader, you either give people a lot of free money, or you paint a victim. I mean, these are the funny things that you read even in the Sufi poets from the 1300s. I mean, you paint a victim, and it's and I found myself in that environment, and you could even find even my Facebook in high school and not high school, my Facebook in college. I was you probably have a negative comment. Oh, what are all these Muslim terrorists doing? Because the first knowledge a lot of us had was 9/11. We didn't know that was our first experience of Islam. So you can't blame. We've had an incredible evolution, but it's not going to happen. I mean, we have to highlight the bad parts of Islam, but are we doing that by highlighting this bombing and this rape and this that and this that and this when we don't do that with it? So if people get that from a text and they justify it, then we step in and isolate that. Like when we find ISIS, how the Western world dealt with ISIS was completely wrong, and that's probably why we're at where we are today. Because Obama and all these people and all these they basically ignored ISIS, and we still haven't dealt with it, and the ideology is still festering. So we handled ISIS so poorly because ISIS These people came with a complete set of textual critiques. And I had an amazing discussion with Fareed Responds in private, where he talked about, he actually did some of this, I don't want to disclose too much, that there's actually teams in Muslim countries that go to these extremist groups with the hadiths, with the Islamic answers, that they exist. They've existed for thousands of years. You're not going to get them from Salafis. You're going to get them from Sufis. You're going to get them from Mu'tazila. You're going to get them from Shias. You're going to get them from... So, I mean, these people can use Sunni hadiths, but In all Muslim countries, and the way to deal with this is theologically.
Yeah.
Is you have to make these guys look like clowns. When you see an ISIS, you don't get scared. Creeping Sharia, holy shit! Oh my god! They raped my beautiful blonde Norwegian women. I mean, yeah, these are bad. I mean, they're bad. Sweden is the land of the pure. I get it, guys. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to have the brown people. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. If they have bad ideas, you deal with them. I mean, you deal with them, and I think America just has that Bill of Rights where no matter where you're at, we all agree on these same things. I don't know what they have in Canada or what they have anywhere else. I think that's what makes it unique here. So we can come up with how to criticize and how to, but I don't think demonize a Muslim. I don't even think just this is a bad hadith, let's laugh at Muhammad. Like, I don't think these are Quranic variants. I don't think any of that is going to do anything, and I think... Well,
but it is doing something. I mean, people are
criticizing,
because of these things. But I want to highlight a comment someone made, which was really nice. A super chat. No ideology should be immune of criticism, but the bigots hijack and hamper the debate for their own agenda instead of meaningful discourse. This is exactly right. This is exactly the point. This is the point. Like, if I could just highlight this and emphasize, I think this is beautifully said. This is so well said.
Shukriya Khan Saab.
Yes, so both shukriya. You speak better Urdu than me. I can't even speak Urdu. I want to say something about ISIS. I think, with responding to ISIS, and before we finish, we definitely need to talk about Pakistan. I want to hear your experiences in Pakistan, because that is part of the solution to this demonization, is to talk about what your experiences were. In regards to responding to ISIS, I don't think, ISIS would never ever listen to an Ismaili, a Shia, a Muslim reformer. These are kafir according to ISIS. These people, these minorities, they will.
Fareed said that too. He said they didn't listen. He said he tried. They didn't listen. So that's
the closest you will get is a Salafi, like, for examul, thank you, or like a
Charles Manson didn't listen until the end either. I mean,
he
had the swastika on his head till the end.
Someone like a Yasir Qadi type individual is the best chance.
They'll do it.
Someone that's Salafi or like Salafi leaning, that respects hadith and doesn't, basically someone from that perspective, but who is basically, so mainstream Salafism is against terrorism. That's the thing. People don't get this. It's very confusing, because not like most of the jihadis are Salafi. So how the hell is Salafism against, it boggles people's minds. But the thing is, the mainstream Salafism, they respect the Saudi scholars, Ibn Baz, and Ibn Uthaymeen, all these guys, these major Salafi scholars, have all condemned terrorism, because of course the Saudi doesn't want terrorists. They want terrorism. They want to keep their power. The terrorism is the biggest threat to Saudi power, because it can actually, like, for example, look what happened to Anwar Sadat in Egypt. He made a peace treaty with Israel and they killed him, right? So jihadists are the biggest threat to monarchies, basically, right? You can say that. So what they want is they want to counter this. So I do agree that we need to fight this game on theological grounds. Bombing is not going to work, because you have people like John Georgalis, that's his name, by the way, the husband of Tanya Joya, that he ended up becoming. And by the way, if you read Graham Wood's book, these ISIS guys, they can fight anybody on theological terms and win. I'm sorry to say, a Sufi has no chance against ISIS, because the Sufi
easy. All right, easy. You put easy because you attack the Isnad. Done. I mean, you attack where they get their source from.
Not attack the Isnad. The Sufi would never come from the.
Well, not a Sufi. I'm just saying the way to attack it, and that's why.
See, that's the academic approach now. But the thing is, I don't know.
It's epistemology, though. No, because you have to ask why do you believe in the companion?
But then we're going and we're basically debunking Islam at that point. We're saying Islam is garbage.
Debunking that form of Islam. Those are the companions. The companions are not the Prophet Muhammad.
But the companions also brought the Quran, right? So if you don't trust the companions to preserve
Muhammad, I think the Islam, the Muslim, the normal, I mean, even Orthodox, all sects of Islam would believe that the Quran was brought through Muhammad, of course, and then the companions are where all this shit happened. So you just go.
No, but the preservation is through the companions, right?
And so that's where Fareed, and that's where these guys probably did it wrong, because they're going companion versus companion. You ask them, why do we believe the companion? How do you know that the companions got their information from the Prophet? There's not a single, don't talk to me about learn Arabic, don't talk to me about mutawatir, don't talk to me about these silly Arabic words. Every single hadith scholar has a theory on this. There's no answer. There's no right. This is an this is an assumption, a presumption that Sahabas go to the Prophet. That's it. That's where I would do it. And that's where it doesn't. It's not getting rid of hadith. It's just putting hadith in its place.
Yeah.
That these are the opinions of the Sahaba, just like the Bible. These are so that's how I would do it. And I'm not a theologian, but I don't need to be. And that's why I put a hadith video on my YouTube. I had to take it down for certain reasons, but people were coming at me. You're not a scholar and stuff like that, but you don't need to be, because you just have to ask companions to Muhammad. Boom. You don't have to. They're starting at gays getting thrown off the building and talking about this and that. Go back to the beginning. Muhammad. So that's where I would come. And it doesn't have to be a Sufi, but that's where it's not even theology. It's not even theology. It's just epistemology. They go to these chains and chains and chains. So that's,
I don't know if that would work with ISIS, because I don't know if they'd even, bother.
I don't want to experiment.
I don't think they would even, like, the type of people we're talking about are extremely dogmatic, like extreme dogmatists. Right? So these people, I don't think they're immune to reason, I think, but we still have to try. We have to fight. And honestly, I think ex-Muslims are the greatest threat to ISIS, in my opinion, more than anything else, because we cannot, it's hard to write us off. Truly, it's hard to write us off. And so ISIS, the biggest threat, and they actually hate Yasir Qadhi too. That Yasir Qadhi has got death threats because he is against terrorism. He's against violent terrorism. He's worked with the government and he got a lot of shit for that too from the Muslim community, which is unfortunate. The Muslim community, like, honestly, you guys, seriously, if someone's working to de-radicalize, you should support that. Like, that's what you should be supporting, not demonizing. But unfortunately, again, this evil Salafi sort of us versus them thinking, wala, it's called wala and bara in Arabic. It poisons everything. It makes
That's what pushed me away. That's the thing that pushed me away, man. If a Christian scholar comes out with a radical new theory about the Gospels, they're not going to get this kind of reaction. I mean, it's ridiculous the way the Muslim world can't just fucking get along on just interpretation. Small things. Yasir Qadhi, Shadi Nasser, they're not even talking about significant things. Shadi Nasser believes that the Quran is the word of God. Like, they're fighting over mustache versus not. Like, it's ridiculous. So this exact mindset is exactly what pushed me away, man. I mean, they're griping over such nonsense, and they're forgetting the God. They're not even, these kids online, they're not even praying, man. They're just arguing about why the 9-year-old girl is okay to have sex with the. I mean, you'd rather have a fucking thread about that. And so this is where I finally, 6 years into it, I said, this is not the religion that, in the environment today that is going to figure this out. Hey, maybe 100 years from now, maybe later. But and that's where I can get that harsh criticism that you guys in the chat want me to. There you go.
So about Spencer, because people keep mentioning Spencer, I'm going to have to do a dedicated video on him. And this is my opinion, not John's. But I think because I come from a Muslim background, I can see things a little bit differently than him. Like, when someone is saying the things that he's saying, like, remember, I was a religious Muslim. I still have religious Muslims in my family, like deeply religious Muslims. Muslims, like, frankly speaking, that believe that someone like me should be killed in an Islamic state if the government so decided. But they will never, ever, they don't want anything bad for me. They want me to go back to Islam. One of my family members was even crying, saying, you're going to go to hell. Actually, two of them, two different family members. One of them was my aunt, was crying and saying, you're going to go to hell. And I don't want you to go to hell. But she doesn't want to kill me. Obviously not. Like, my family members, it's not like what the Pakistani ex-Muslim experience is. My family is more liberal. I have Indian Muslims, for Kenyan Indian Muslims, because we're from Kenya, we live there, but before that it goes back to India. So my family is way more tolerant, the loving, like you said, this sort of Islam that people don't see. And when I hear some of the things that people like Spencer are saying, and like you said, what you lived through after 9/11, that's the outcome of that sort of talk, which is why me personally, my conscience, the way I sleep at night is I make sure that whatever I'm saying about Islam, I'm also saying, be careful how you use this. And I also go out of my way to defend Muslims when they are being attacked for the religious beliefs, because I believe in freedom of religion. I'm not the type, I don't believe in blasphemy. So how can I on one hand say I'm against you guys persecuting ex-Muslims, but I want to persecute you for being Muslim? That doesn't make any sense. So I will stand up for the Chinese Muslims. I will say that China is wrong in what they're doing to the Muslims in China. What the Burmese did to the Muslims is wrong. What, all of these people is doing, and the reason I'm saying that is because I can still be a critic of Islam and say that at the same time. There's no contradiction there. But some people's minds, they can't reconcile those two opinions. They can't see that someone can be ex-Muslim and also support Muslims, and obviously, frankly, support everybody. I'm not pro-Muslim. I just want them to have the same rights as anybody else, the same rights that I want, right? They have blood just like I have blood, and so everybody, I think, needs to be, it's humanism. That's what humanism is. And, if you believe in humanism, we need to stand up for humanism, which means sometimes supporting people we don't like, including ultra-Orthodox Jews. I don't like their religion, but if they want to practice it, as long as they don't push it on anybody else, under secularism, I will fight for them to have their, not to be discriminated against. They can work if they want a job just because they're Jewish or something. They shouldn't be not denied the job. Now, of course, it's a different story if they want to start saying, well, because of my religious belief, I can't do this and this. Now there's a bit of a problem. That's a different story. But just for being something, just for being Muslim, just for being Jewish, just for being atheist, you should get the same rights as everybody else. Right? It doesn't matter what you believe. And that's what I truly will fight and die for in my life.
Well, that's the great part of it being America, that you don't need, or at least in America, I'm a little biased, is that you don't need to really fight for that because it's enshrined in our First Amendment, since 1791. So that's the best part, which is good. But no, that's a great discussion, man, and that it blows my mind that people don't realize that we've had Robert Spencer, Pamela Geller. We've had this type of discourse for 20 plus years. What has it led to? Hindu Tava, Trump. I mean, it's led to these things. The Iranian Revolution, you could, if you really look into it, you could have a very good argument that it was secular pressure because the secularists, the monarchists, these stupid fucking Muslims, they want you to put your hijab, rip your hijab off now, or we're going to this is when you demonize somebody's ancient culture, religion, and stuff, you're going to get a backlash. And that's this psychological thing of do you blame the victim? Do you blame the oppressor? So I just read this book about women fighters in Iran in the 70s. I mean, it's like 90-something% of women in Iran, they were fighting for their hijabs because they felt that the Western secularists were pushing against. It wasn't because of Islam. It wasn't because they felt that they were getting their identity pushed against by some Western money. What is this guy spending all this money on this world? And so that's this thing. When you approach it that way, it doesn't work. But when you just have a constitution with a First Amendment and just kind of make sure everybody, at least gets decent jobs and stuff, it's like, boom, done. I mean, and we see that in the Arab world in like the 40s and things like that, and so it's like it's not radically different, but we've gone backwards. We've had 20 years of Robert. So that's something. If I get him, I'm going to ask them what do you think the fruits of your labor has been? And people will always come up to ex-Muslims. What's your purpose? Why are you doing what you're doing? I mean, everybody has a voice, and there's always an answer. People could have a negative person, and people like Ben Shapiro, Robert Spencer, they're never going to follow that breadcrumb to the shooter that had them on their YouTube playlist. And I don't think anybody should do that. There was a Bernie Sanders supporter that shot a Republican congressman. Bernie Sanders came out and condemned that. So it's like you can make that breadcrumb. You can make that breadcrumb, but I feel like maybe Spencer and these type of, you would call them they're getting lumped in this right-wing thing. I think those people, they might not want to be able to fess up to Breivik and these kind of, and you don't want to blame them for these because then we're doing I'm going to blame all Muslims for violence. So it's a complicated discussion, but any sociologist or anyone specializes in this field would take all these things. They would take, and there's so many ways to answer this question. Blame the American bombing, and the Hindus. They blame everyone. I mean, they blame the British colonialists, the Muslims, 1,000 years ago, the Mughals. It was Akbar. I mean, you could blame all these type of people, but it all goes into one society. So we want to have everything because their holy book says it. That's why they're doing it. They're women. There's a lot of rape problems because of the holy book. There's a lot of this because of that was George Bush's whole thing. Right. I lived during. You guys don't maybe remember, kids, because the news cycle was different back then. You watched the news at night and it went away. I mean, you could find some things on YouTube, but you can't find a lot. What George Bush went to Iraq for, it was a crusade. Okay, this was a crusade. I mean, he used that exact language. So these are these religious. These are these religious. So we've tried it, before. And that's why when I put my video out, people are like, who are you? You fucking white guy talking like this. And I'm like, I'm just giving you some brotherly advice, just giving you my own opinion. We've tried this before. I've lost several of my friends in these stupid wars. And guess what? I've traveled to the Muslim world and I've seen, damn, they got a way of life here that if they fine-tuned it, this country could rake in billions of dollars. And they've done it before. The Muslims have ruled the entire planet before when they were rationalists, when they were scientists.
Yeah.
You know, the golden era was when you would have guys like us in the mosque.
Yeah.
You know? So the Muslims, they're capable of this, but I want to tell them that you can do this, guys, but you're not going to get it. I mean, I lost friends, billions of dollars. George, they messed shit up. And then Obama comes in and tries to be all soft, and then Trump comes in, he's all tough. And boy, what a world we're living in. But at the end of the day, I love the common person in their house that just practices their religion, listens to their music, just loves their family based on their own form of religion.
Yeah.
If you raise your family in the Christian way, you have a decent family. Jewish family, you're going to have hopefully a hardworking kid that respects their parents, that has a good ground, that probably not going to be doing a lot of drugs and drinking. Just these basic religious principles that people in the village have. But, I've also saw some pretty crazy shit in the Pakistani village. I'm like, whoa, okay. Like, some interpretations of this religion can lead to some very backward ideologies. And a lot of the Islam I'm talking about probably will not happen for a while, guys. I bet people in the Arab world are like, oh, my God, this guy has no clue what's going on. Believe me, I know the villages have a lot of work to do, but it's every country has its pros, every country has its cons, every religion has its pros and cons. Yeah. But I think Islam, and Islamic country, we don't need Islamic republics. Yeah. We need republics that have Islam as the majority religion. And we're seeing these amazing new trade deals that, watch the jobs. And, Israel is Israel's hot right now. What an economy. Mm-hmm. They're not talking about Palestine right of return. Give me a fucking break, you. Come on. They're not talking about. That's what the Hindu. They're talking about old historical. The way of the future is to have those economic partnerships. The new generation of Iraqis. I love talking about them on Twitter. They don't give a shit about Sunni and Shia. They want to have jobs. They want to listen to American music. They want to eat Cheetos. They want to go on YouTube and subscribe to Abdullah Samir and go on Patreon. They just want to be, but they also want to be just able to wear their hijab. If they want. This is the new generation. We can make fun of Generation Z as much as we want because, they have that. But they also have this new generation. I don't know how it happened, but it seems like there's a lot of extremists, and you deal with them a lot as well. You got these kids in Pakistan that are blowing people's heads off for what they believe. So, and I was a school teacher, for many years ago, and that's just me. I have an idealism for the next generation that I think is really good, but I think every generation likes to judge the younger generation, but I just feel like we've gone the opposite way. We don't need more Islamic republics. We don't need more blasphemy laws. We don't need less trade deals. We need more trade deals. How come when I drive in Pakistan, when they open one McDonald's, it's like the biggest party of the whole village? Like what does that say about how the economy's working and things like that? So that's when we get into some cool positive discussions as well. But
people are
Pakistan's sitting on a gold mine, man. They're sitting on a gold mine, but they're stuck by this stupid religion that can't be separated from state.
I want to say something, but people saying you don't know anything. Like people don't realize you lived in Pakistan. So like obviously he is speaking from experience. This is a guy that converted to Islam, went to Pakistan, speaks Urdu. Okay, we're gonna get to that. But before we do that, I just want to take a quick break. For those of you who are watching, I'm joined by John DelVento. John DelVento is an ex-Muslim, a Muslim convert, Baptist convert to Islam, left Islam, speaking about Islam, likes certain things in Islam, very critical of Hadith, and from that perspective, more into Quran and stuff like that. And for those of you who are new to the channel, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the channel. Your monthly support really helps, and I really do appreciate it. That's some good cold brew coffee you got there, John. Did you make it yourself?
No, I didn't, but this is my new, this is not a sponsorship. They think we are just raking in on the cash, right? So this is not a sponsorship. I'm not Ali Dawa. I don't make I'm not going to convert. Believe me, I could probably have a great little Sufi channel and rake in the Patreon, couldn't I? Right?
Yeah.
Because believe me, I should probably just convert back to Islam, but I'm not going to. So this is not a sponsorship, but I'm telling you, this is cold brew coffee. I started drinking it this summer, and it is great because I've drank a lot of black coffee in my career as a freelancer. I've always had to stay up, so I've had some problems with acidity and stuff like that. So my dentist recommended cold brew coffee because it's less acidic, low and slow. It's like a 10-hour brew. It's just low and slow. So I love the stuff. You can drink it cold or warm.
So
that person said I was ignorant, huh? So I would say that person's ignorant. So they say you could only know Islam when you're in a Muslim land. So that's where this whole thing. I want to. Where does that come from? I mean, because you could respond to Sim by saying, "Oh, but John went to Pakistan." That's fine, but that's one way to respond. But I would just say, how does it make me ignorant that I experienced Islam in a non-Muslim? I don't understand the logic there, and that's when I just don't understand the connection. I would say you're ignorant because you haven't experienced Islam in this way. I'm sorry that you have the violence and the war. I mean, I talk with friends. I keep talking about my friend from Yemen because I talk with them every day. I mean, they're telling me about the civil war there. Iran, Saudi Arabia proxy. I'm sorry that you haven't been able to go in the mosque. I mean, my mosque, we had Shias and Sunnis praying together. We had programs of biryani, and we didn't have issues dealing with. So I'm sorry that you're as ignorant, but how am I ignorant by living in a non-Muslim land? Like, we're not talking about politics here. Yeah, so
that's a good point that you made, that even me, like, I will admit that I am ignorant about the experience of Muslims in Muslim countries. Not as ignorant as I could be, because I talk to a lot of ex-Muslims that are in the closet all over the world. But it's true that my experience of Islam was mainly living in Canada. So I'm dealing with Canadian Muslims who are, different than, for example, Indian Muslims or Pakistani Muslims or, Muslims in Saudi or whatever like that. But I did live in Egypt for 9 months, so I had that experience as well. But yeah, we're coming from our particular experience. We're not trying to generalize. We're speaking on behalf of what we know. This is what we experienced. This is our perspective. When I talk about how my family treated me, obviously that's different than how Abdullah Gondal's family treated him. Very, very badly. Okay, so there's differences, of course, there, and we're just sharing all of the experiences. 3 points I want to make, then I really want you to talk about your life in Pakistan, because we don't want to miss that. We missed that last
I'm definitely going to do that. Would you mind if you can make your 3 points?
Yep.
I think I need to crank up my air condition. I'm sweating a little bit, and just grab a cup of water. Can I leave for a cup? I appreciate everybody in the chat. I love you guys. Follow me, and Abdullah is going to give his points. I appreciate this chat, man. We'll go into Pakistan next, you think?
Yes.
Cool. I'll be right back.
Okay, so while John is doing that, I just have 3 points. One of them is what he was saying about when you critique someone's culture, they push back. So when you critique or you criticize someone's culture, there will be pushback, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if people are like, if I'm attacking hijab and I say hijab is bad, and more people want to wear hijab, by all means, power to them. But that's not going to stop me. I'm still going to do it because I think, in my opinion, otherwise I wouldn't do it. I think there's going to be a net loss of people wearing hijabs, because I think that what I'm showing is that by virtue of argument and by virtue of my positions, I think I will win over and I will convert, or people will win over to my side of my view. However, when it comes to banning hijab, I think that will actually make more people wear hijab just out of protest. Even you'll find, for example, some liberal Muslims that might be like, okay, I'm going to wear hijab now because I see what you guys are doing to my sister over there who is a hijabi, and I see how you're forcing her not to wear hijab. Now, kind of like the extreme secularism that we see in France, where you can be like, you can get arrested for wearing hijab. I don't know if that's true exactly, but I know in Turkey as well. It's kind of like what Quebec tried to do about making it so that teachers cannot wear hijab. And I understand the controversy of them, they're in schools and you can say it's a government job or this and that, and secularism, there shouldn't be a mix. But in my opinion, it's the way they implemented that was very unfair. Like, you could wear a crucifix around your neck and you could have a cross in the parliament, but you couldn't wear hijab. So it was definitely targeting Muslims. So when you do that, when you ban, if Iran, the government, the Shah was an American placed Shah. If that American Shah doesn't care about the best interests of the people and he's just doing what he wants, and let's say they had some, I don't know much about Iran, but I know now you've got the opposite, where you have a situation where the majority don't believe in hijab, as Armin Navabi was talking on Secular Jihadists and on Atheist Republic. You have more Muslims now that are against hijab or don't really like hijab in Iran, but the law is still, you have to wear hijab, right? So it's a situation where you have the majority of Iranians don't want to wear hijab, but the government is going against that because it's a hardline, Islamist government. So that's one thing. So I was just saying, John, I was just saying that, there's going to be pushback when we fight against bad idea. For example, if I critique hijab, maybe some women will want to wear hijab because of that, but I'm still going to do it because I think overall it's going to be a net gain for humanity if people don't wear hijab. When it comes to forcing women not to wear hijab, for example, like the extreme secularism you have in France, where, for example, they arrested this woman that was on the beach wearing a burqa.
Wrong.
She's on the beach wearing a burqa. Like, who the fuck cares if she's wearing a burqa on the beach? Like, seriously, it's so fucking stupid. Sorry, I'm swearing, but it looks so dumb. And when people,
I'm rubbing off on you, huh?
It's when people see that, they're like, this is insanity, because Muslims are like, what? Like, you guys,
that's crazy to me.
And that's when you get the pushback that you're talking about. But so I want to differentiate between forcing people to not wear it by laws and by, basically like, making it illegal to wear hijab. Like Quebec did this, and they tried to ban hijab, and which went against the Constitution, by the way, the Canadian Constitution. So they invoked this, there's a special thing, I forgot what it's called now, but they invoked this special non-thing clause to allow them to ban teachers from wearing hijab. So now there's some controversy there. I don't want to get into that. It's a long conversation. But the point is, I'm against that in general, because I don't think you should be forcing women not to wear hijab. They should choose for themselves. I think we defeat hijab, in my opinion, I think hijab's a bad thing. We defeat it on the basis of ideas, not on the basis of making it illegal.
Yeah, that's pushback. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's such a strange discussion. Like, these are sometimes when it's such a strange discussion. So you fight. I'm an American where at any one moment there's billions of people criticizing my country. I don't care. Yeah. You fight bad ideas with good ideas. Like, if my grandpa realized that in 2020 there's young men that are getting so offended by words, he would spit on the ground. Like, have our humans gotten that weak?
I know.
Where we can't defend. I mean, words.
Yeah.
Words. There are slaves in Libya right now. You're getting offended by words in a cartoon. You should be ashamed of you. I mean, your grandparents, fought in partition for what they believe, and you're getting offended because of a cartoon. You should have pride in it. Fight bad ideas with good ideas. When people come at me with criticism of America, I'll say, "Tell me about your Bill of Rights." I'll say, "Tell me who's got the number one economy." So you're an American supreme. But guess what? Everybody makes fun of America. That's the point. Yeah. Everybody critic, but I love it. I'll respond with good ideas. But guess what? Some people, when you criticize America, what do they do? I mean, America, we got plenty of nuts. I mean, come on, we got put on the woo. Yeah. So there's an approach. So this is why are we? Why do I have to explain that in 2020? This is what makes me want to bang my head against the wall. In 2020, we have to tell people to fight bad words with good words. That you're getting offended. Like, guess what? If I criticize the rape statistics in a Muslim country and you call me an Islamophobe, that means you're the one that's the Islamophobe, because you're making the connection between Islam and that. I never made that connection. I just put out the statistic. So people get so offended. Like, come on,
the rape statistics in Muslim countries will be lower because they don't report them, right?
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, but it's just an approach. But hey, I understand. I understand it because my parents are cut from a different cloth. If I ever say anything kind of anti-American on the phone, my mom will just hang up the phone. She's very patriotic. I understand. I was raised in a multicultural environment kind of stuff, so that's why I like to travel and stuff. But I understand the nationalism and the patriotism. It's a very effective and attractive ideology. I understand, guys, and I respect your culture. That's the thing. I criticize your culture, but I respect your culture. I don't have all these Pakistani hats and a tabla in my room and all these flutes from Japan because I hate other cultures. I love traveling and I love music and I love food and I still love eating roti with my hands and things like that. So I love cultures, but I'm gonna call you out on your bullshit, and I hope people call me out on my bullshit, and people call out Americans. I know I'm full of bullshit. I'm just a composer with a microphone, guys. So call me out and stuff, but have thick skin and let free speech do what it's beautiful. The beauty of it is you have the right to get offended. That's the best right. You have the right to get offended. So embrace it and enjoy it.
So about America and obviously there's a lot of, I think the point I would make is that with secularism and, certain policies, America has thrived. And I think that makes a lot of sense. There's obviously a lot of historical reasons as well, and as well a lot of bad things that America did as well. So World War II, obviously America came out way in advance of other countries because of the fact that it was away from the fighting, and it was able to loan a lot of money to other countries that they had to be paid back. And so America came way ahead in the war. But in regards to what America has done in terms of stealing resources and of other countries and stuff like that, there's a lot of unethical things, you know about that as well. So, but that aside, the bad parts aside, which we will condemn, the good things that America has done, which, for example, Pakistan hasn't done, is in America, like you said, you can be Muslim, you can be Hindu, you can do all of it, and you have the right to be yourself, right? In Canada as well. Whereas in India now, you have a situation now where it's kind of scary to be a Muslim, right? It's kind of scary to, like, there's so much fighting, like Israel and Palestine, there's this big fight between the Jews and Muslims. Like, we solved a lot of these problems in the West. Frankly speaking, we are doing well because we don't have this fighting. We're able to spend our time, and we don't have as much religion. I mean, there's a lot of religious nonsense still going on in America, and I think that's holding America back. Because if America gets rid of some of this fundamentalism, I think it's going to go even further ahead, which is a good thing. And now China is the one that we have to keep an eye on. But, politics aside,
but those bad things, you point out those points about the environment. Like, America interned its own Japanese citizens. Like, holy crap! Like, its own Japan. But you take that, you condemn it, you put it in the history books, and you move on. Like, we nuclear bombed Japan twice, and now I think I'm wearing a Japanese shirt. Like, that's an approach, okay? Yeah. We destroyed Germany twice, and now, together, and now Germany's the #1 economy in the world. So this is the thing we have, and these Hindus, they'll talk to you about, Oregon, Zim, Ghazali, Hind. They'll talk about these. Okay, you condemn them, and you move on, okay? Imagine if there was a mob of Japanese people in America that are, you intern. Like, okay, that there is a way to protest using historical injustice. Sometimes it's not really effective. The reason why when American protest has worked, it's when you framed it in the sense of America's own universal rights. The civil rights movement worked because it was framed that, hey, these are the rights in your Constitution. We don't have them. Done. It was not framed in religion or entitlement. It was not framed. They didn't say we had slavery. They said, here's your rights. We need them. So we find that when you have protests that use historical injustice as evidence, that's pretty shoddy. So point out all these things, brother. America's got batch. I mean, it destroyed the Middle East. My country, it's a shame. I mean, I'm ashamed. That's why I'm blessed to have found my Middle Eastern friends, and I love talking to you guys, and I love the experience. I mean, I cry when I think of Iraq and what we've done. It's disgusting, but we deal with it, and we help, and we move on. And now, who has spent billions of dollars in Iraq? Not the Muslim countries. Yeah. We've tried our best. We've tried. Hasn't worked, but we've tried. We haven't given up. So this is we didn't give up on Japan. Yeah. We didn't give up on Korea. We didn't give up on Vietnam. So this is the different approach. And I think they want to lecture Americans about this. So that I'm getting lectured by Hindu Tava about this approach.
Yeah.
Hindu Tava is getting their approach from, Hitler. Their lecture, like, I love FDR, man. He was we're talking about World War II. That's my favorite. My grandpa was raised on FDR. This is my favorite president, man. He had the Workers' Bill of Rights, all the social programs, Medicare, so everything. Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Okay, Franklin.
Yeah, Medicare, Social Security, World War II. He was elected 3-4 times. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't use his legs. And I mean, this was and he was rich. He was an elitist. Millionaire, but he fought for the working class and everybody. And this is, but guess what? He also put Japanese families in internment camps. So here's these things so Saddam Hussein, you could find, I talked to Saddamists on my Twitter. Iraq was better under Saddam Hussein. I talk with young Iraqis that say that's bullshit. So, we criticize these ideas, but if we use history Iraq was better under Saddam Hussein, therefore we need to elect the same party. That's a historical argument. Yeah. Okay. Muslim conquerors came in 500 years ago, therefore we have to redestroy those mosques. Like, this is a thinking that I don't understand, and it hasn't worked here, and it's not going to work. So I'm not looking down on you.
John is a Republican. He's not a far leftist, guys.
I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm a conservative Republican. Yeah.
People saying that far leftist. Okay. So, this conversation is just going so fast, and it's
I'm
hard.
Sorry, man.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. But I want to talk about Pakistan. Tell me about.
We can hang out for a little bit, right? I mean, yeah. So Pakistan. All right. So, I obviously got involved, with a mosque that's basically, a Punjabi mosque. I mean, it was a Punjabi family. They would say Barelvi and things like that. So, I was just very involved in the culture. I liked it as a musician. I really enjoyed it. I loved the answers that I got after every Fajr prayer. I would, walk around with the imam and I would ask him questions about, because one of the reasons I didn't like Christianity is because of textual criticism and manuscripts. And people are coming at me like, why do you talk about this stuff? Because I've loved this stuff for decades of my life. Like, I studied the Bible in the same way. I studied the manuscripts and the apologetics and the books, and I wasn't satisfied with how the Bible was put together. But when I looked in the Quran, I'm satisfied how it's preserved, and I still am. I think a lot of these arguments, they don't hold up. I'm satisfied. So I used to ask the imam these same questions. Tell me about the Quran preservation. Tell me about slavery. So I used to ask him tough questions. I'm not an idiot. I walked with my imam, and Saeed, if you're watching, you gave me great answers. He unfortunately moved back to Texas. It's unfortunate. The imam we got after, came from Pakistan, because my mosque was sponsored by an organization called Minhaj al-Quran International. And there's not many denominations of Islam, but that's probably the closest denomination to Islam. It's headquartered in Pakistan. It's a humanitarian organization. It's got some shady money. But it runs ambulance services in Pakistan, beautiful buildings, madrasas, schools. It's got a building where they're doing zikr 24 hours a day for decades, and they do it in 8-hour shifts. So they have the boys go in there and they do zikr for 8-hour shifts. So it's just one of these really intense, chisti kind of environments. So that's where the mosque is from. It's Minhaj al-Quran, very good funding. The imams were very well paid, extremely educated. All our imams, many years in the Pakistani madrasas. Most of them were trained in Pakistan. So, but Minhaj al-Quran was just a very nice form of Islam. And are the Sheikh Tahir
Sufi one, right? Tahir.
You could call it Sufi, but he's not going to call himself Sufi.
Okay.
He's it's Islam. But yeah, it's
Well, they all say Islam.
That's
right?
the problem. That's what they would say. But I guess you could call it Sufi. But it's a Chisti Sufi order.
Yeah.
The Ijazah, the lineage is Chisti, and the Sheikh is Tahir al-Qadri. So he has his own. He put out a translation of the Quran called Glorious Quran, and that translation specifically deals with every passage about Jews and Christians. So he wrote the fatwa against suicide bombing and terrorism that came out. He wrote that big blue fatwa. So this is the environment that I got involved in. So I loved the answers. I enjoyed it. I did notice many problems, because I think with Pakistani culture becomes its own animals. With South Asian culture comes its own animals. I saw things that I wasn't raised on. I saw views on women I wasn't really comfortable with. And eventually the discussion came about marriage and a wife. And a very uncomfortable discussion came where you're a new Muslim. If you marry a liberal Muslim girl, she might pull you away. She might, and this is a literal quote, he said, she might think higher of herself than she was. So some of these uncles were like that, man. I mean, you could say they're all Sufi and progressive, but very misogynistic. I mean, and you Daisies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I mean, they said if you find a liberal Muslim girl, she might think she's too much. We want to find you a girl in Pakistan.
Okay.
That was the discussion. I said, I don't think so. So I didn't go there for a minute. And I had a lot of friends, in the mosque and stuff. They're telling me about Pakistan, telling me about Qawwali, and I would eat Pakistani food every day. I gained a lot of weight in that mosque. So I loved it. It was good people. Everybody had their family. Everybody had nice houses. They seemed to make a lot of money. They all worked their asses off. Nice gas stations. Nice. Everybody seemed to have a good head on their. I mean, a lot of bigotry. They hated Jews. They hated the type of interesting cultural problems. But I enjoyed it. So I went to Pakistan, to just go on a trip as a Muslim. It was an incredibly complicated visa process. I had to bring a Shahada certificate in this kind of garbage. I had to prove that I was a Muslim.
But Pakistan.
And then, I had to prove part of my visa process that I was a Muslim. I had to bring a Shahada certificate. So I might even have it on screen share.
Non-Muslims are allowed to go to Pakistan? It's not like Saudi.
Well, I couldn't get in. No, it wasn't a tourist visa. It was for the nikah, basically. So the reason why I went there, my tourist visa got denied. So I had to go over there with like a wedding excuse as well to kind of go through the visa process. So I don't want to get into it too much in public because, the immigration system is something you could really game really well. So I went over there going to meet a girl as well. So to do that, in the visa process, I had to prove that I was a Muslim.
Oh, yeah.
So I needed to have a Shahada certificate. So that's why that form of visa got approved. And I have the visa right here, actually, because a tourist visa would only have let me go there for 9 days. That kind of visa.
9 days. That's it.
9 to 17 days. Yeah, this visa let me go for 3 months. Oh, sorry, tourist visa is 2 weeks.
What?
The marriage visa got me 3 months. So when I started talking, when I started talking to them about
Yeah.
marriage, it's hard to get to Pakistan. That's a big problem. So when I
That's
started
odd.
talking to them about marriage, I was able to get there for 3 months, and that's why. So a tourist visa would only get me there for 2 weeks. So I'm not spending all this money. So I
Oh,
wanted to spend
nice.
a
Yeah.
proper vacation. So I hung out. I
Yeah.
studied with some chistis. I enjoyed the culture. I saw what I saw. But part of that was to go meet a girl, and I put a video on Facebook and stuff where we did a traditional Punjabi. It wasn't a marriage, but I met a girl, got kind of involved. But I was just uncomfortable with the arranged what is your D? I was uncomfortable with the arranged marriage. I was uncomfortable. I didn't blame it on Islam. I blamed it on just kind of these are not backward. I forgive me if I use that word backward, but it's just a different way of life. But I love the country. I enjoyed it. I came back with a positive experience. If I went there as a non-Muslim, I would come back with the same experience. I mean, wherever I went, I was treated like a king. I mean, they gave me that white horse in that video as more of a joke.
Yeah.
Like they did that because they cared about me. I didn't
But
pay for any of that. I didn't pay for any of that because they loved me and I had a good crew. And they're like, yeah, we're going to. So it felt like a big party. Now, again, I'm a tourist. You
Yeah.
can go to North Korea. They'll show you the government trip. But guess what? I went into the villages, and I could talk about negative parts of Pakistan as well. But, the whole papers about my dean was complex. And the American immigration system is a scam. I mean, hundreds of dollars for these visas. So.
Yeah.
To get the 3-month visa, I had to, kind of say that I was going there to get married, even though I really wasn't. So, long story there.
Do you think it was because you were white, you were given a better treatment than?
So I walked into the consulate in New York and I said, "Mera naam Yahya hai, aapke Urdu bolte hai," because and that got me the visa right there. Because at first that got me the visa right there. So because I walked because they denied it at the office, and I said no, I want to go to Pakistan. And my buddies were there like, come on, I want to bring this Gora to Pakistan and see the code. Like I really wanted to learn because I grew up thinking I thought it was a desert wasteland. I thought it was the land of the Taliban, and believe me, I went to Osama bin Laden's village. So believe me, I saw the ruins. Like believe me. There's a lot of issues there, but I thought it was the desert. I thought it was just. I grew up in the 9/11 days and the Robert Spencer days. I had a really negative, so I wanted to go and see. My parents thought I was crazy. They still think I sometimes think I was crazy, but I enjoy it. So I wanted to see. So we kind of fought the immigration officials because those are just the desk officials. They're like no visa, no visa. So we said no. I demand to see the consular. I demand to see. So we walked upstairs in New York, and if you know the consulate, it's the white building. You walk upstairs and beautiful office, and the consular, he's there in his fancy desk. I don't know what he's doing all day. He's there. He had a grimace on his face. I'm like, oh shit, this doesn't work. I said, "Mera naam Yahya hai, aapke Urdu." He said, "Oh, you speak Urdu." He stamped the visa on the spot, 3-month visa. Boom. So you just got to kind of have the schmoozing skills. So, that's why I think I succeeded in Pakistan, because I went there with just a positive personality. I went there with a sense of respect. I learned a little bit of their language. I learned their culture. I didn't judge them. I didn't talk too much in Pakistan. I just listened. I didn't talk much. I didn't judge. I didn't take video. I took a few videos and pictures and stuff, but I just listened and I learned and I enjoyed it. And I saw good and bad. And I'm sure people that come to America, they would say the same thing. People come to America, they see homeless encampments on the street, and then they see me in this house. They're like, oh, how's that work? So everybody's got their perspective, but I love Pakistan. I'll say Pakistan's Zindabad. I can't wait to go back. And if you think I'm going to go to India after the way I've gotten treated, you guys are losing that battle, Hindu Tava. So you're going to have to earn my trust. But Pakistan, based on my experience, has earned my trust and my respect. They have their issues, but I think they do things very well. Good country.
What were some of the good experiences you had in Pakistan? Did you find people were welcoming you into the houses? They gave you food? Like what did you kind of experience? They smiled at you when you spoke Urdu. Obviously, they smiled at you when you spoke Urdu. But like, tell us a little bit about what was that? Like, what was the best part of your trip?
So as a musician, I've been blessed to just have been able to travel the world in many. Before I was a composer, I was more of a performer, like a traveling musician. So I used to travel in different bands. It used to be very cheap to travel. You can go to Europe for like $70 back in the early. I mean, it was really fun. You can get a band of kids together and stuff. So in college, I did a lot of traveling. I've traveled to about 25 countries and look straight in the camera and tell you that Pakistan was the most hospitable country I've ever been to on my life on planet Earth.
You've been in how many countries, you said?
About 25 separate countries. And I mean, but you could say that because when you go to Europe, you basically hit like 10 of them anyway. So it's not. And I went to Latin America because when I was a Christian, I did a lot of mission trips, a lot of mission work where you go and do evangelism.
Oh, wow.
Where you go to the third world and give them the good news of Christianity, that colonial shit. So when you hit Latin America, you basically hit 7 countries. When you hit Europe, you hit 10. So it's a lot. So basically, in terms of major cultural centers, probably 3. I saw Western European culture at a glance. I've seen Latin American culture at a glance, and I've seen South Asian culture at a glance. If you want to say 3 regions, but 25 different countries. And Pakistan was the most hospitable country I've ever been to. I mean, and I was treated with respect. I kind of had to prove myself. You have to prove yourself. But anywhere you go, chai, pani, roti lo, your food's there. And not just a snack. You walk in, it's a Thanksgiving feast. Not just one Thanksgiving feast, 4 Thanksgiving feasts. Not just 4 Thanksgiving feasts, 4.5. And you can't even leave the house because everybody wants to chat. And there's phases of leaving the house. You eat your meal and you talk with the grandpa. You talk with this one, you do your prayer, you walk out. I mean, to leave a house in Pakistan it's 2 hours in itself because and it's a lot. It make me tear up a little bit because it's a lot. And it's not Islam necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Hindu. It's just the people. And to me, it's the culture. And I saw this in the villages. This is where I saw that love and that hospitality. And I saw it in the cities as well. But in the villages, you sit there. And what I bring it down to is the beauty of humans, the beauty of simple humans, free of technology, free of taxation, and they just have a simple house with their family. And they marry their cousins, maybe a little bit, stuff like that. But they do a little bit. But I like that village culture. They have it's not the religion, but I love that village culture. And you can go to a village in probably any place in the world. They probably have similar ideals, hopefully. But just that village life in Pakistan, I loved it. You go there and you're always taken care of. Also, I like that. I like the food, okay, but I don't want to say, but I like the culture of food. That food is something that's shared as a group. That it's not, you're not just going to eat, in front of your TV like I do. I live a pretty solid, you eat with your family. They raise their kids like that. You eat out of the same bowl. The shared family system. I don't agree with a lot of the women's rights things and things that go on in there, but there's a passion for education and there's a passion for. Yeah, I mean, it's just nice and it's just fun. It's fun. I mean, I could get my cell phone hacked for free and things like that. It's a lot of fun. I paid off the police and things like that. I got, I gave money. Yeah, I gave the police, a couple $100. I could do whatever. I had them on my leash because I hung out with some of the Juts, which were like the village leaders, which are the village farmers, where they literally don't do anything. The money just appears. I mean, they literally just pray all day and shit. And eat. That's all they do because they're just like Zamin. They're just landowners. That's the crew I got. So I was, and that's the caste system of Pakistan. So we would just go to the farm and just observe the peasants work, and then the money would just come in. So a very strange environment. But hey, because of that, a lot of free food and stuff like that. But even the poorest person, I went to get my nap done, the size of my clothes, the little shack. You go in, you walk in. The gentleman, he had nothing. It was a smelly, nasty, but he did great work. He said, "Do you want a Pepsi?" And that's like whatever they had, he gave it. Because that's the barakah. That's the barakah. You could say but that's the blessing. The guest is the blessing. And that's what I like. And I got in trouble for not bringing bringing a gift into a house a couple times. There's all these unheard of desi laws. Like you never know when you're going to break a rule. Like you never know. Everybody's on eggshells, especially when around the aunties. So one of the rules I figured out quick is if you don't enter a house with a gift in that culture, you're done, and you're probably done for the rest of your life. They're gonna have that in the. Do you remember when you didn't bring that gift? So you bring a gift. So these are things. Back in the day in America, when you wore a hat and you walked in a building, you took your hat off. Why? I don't know. These are just these weird cultural things. Yeah. So I loved that culture. Maybe because it was exotic for me. But I've also seen a lot, and I just think it's very pure. But I've thought about it a lot. I don't know what it is. I think there's music there that I love. I got really attached to Qawwali. Part of studying the Chishti Sufi thing was getting involved with the Qawwali, and it gave me a new appreciation for music. The food was great. Yeah, and I think it's great. And it's a shame at what's going on. It's a shame that Islam is so at the forefront. It's a shame that the caste system is such a thing. It's a shame that people are the same blood. Like can't get like you and me, Canadian American. Like we'll quip. Like America is better than Canada. I'm going to tell you, and you're going to say Canada's better than America. And we'll quip and stuff. But it's like we're the same blood. You're brown. I'm white. But it's like it's the same land, dude. It's not like so. It's like when I see Indians in Pakistan, they're not even like brown versus white. They're literally the same people. I mean, they're literally like North Korea, South. Like they're literally. I mean, they're the same people.
Yeah.
So I just don't get it. Like what? I mean, they're beautiful. The most beautiful mountains I've ever seen. The most beautiful. I mean, a lot of terrorism, and they were hiding Bin Laden and stuff like corrupt, but beautiful stuff. I mean, they could be raking in billions of dollars. They have like Yellowstone National Park every 10 miles. I'm like,
oh wow.
But they can't do this because of the partition in 1947 because of some Mughal empire in 500, because of Tariq Fatah talking points, because of religious belief. What?
Yeah.
Come on, take
Yeah.
a trip to Pakistan. If you could figure out the visa process, go with a couple $1,000, pay off the cab driver, But was treated very well. If you have money,
Yeah.
okay. If you have money, you can live like a king in Pakistan. I was lucky to go there, a couple $1,000. You're fine. Otherwise, like when I went to mosque, when I left that mosque prayer, what do you think the first thing is that hits you when you leave the mosque? Beggars.
Oh yeah.
Tons of them.
Oh yeah.
Tons of them.
Oh wow.
They give it. It's a difference. So I got involved with some of the Juts, upper class. I was able to have a cab and stuff like that. But I got the village experience and stuff like that. But yeah, if you have a lot of money in any country, you can do fine. So my thing is I wish one day everybody in Pakistan could have access to a good amount of money. Minimum wage, nice economy, a nice village lifestyle. These villages I go to, the people get elected because they're the oldest, wisest uncle, and there's really no other reason. I'm like, why is this guy the mayor? Because he's the local Jut. What do you know about politics? What do you know about like why'd you get so there's many systemic but it's not my place to talk about these things. You ask me my experiences, I'll give you but it's not my place to tell them that their government should do it, but I could tell you that it's a corrupt system and this is how we do it. But I enjoyed it, and if you travel, you can learn things, and it's a little more expensive to travel now, and especially with COVID-19. But what's the closest thing we have, folks? We have the internet. So find a Muslim friend, go to a chat room, find my Twitter where there's all different people arguing religion, look up at different cultural pages, go to the food blogs, and just, interact with people all over, or if you can do some traveling, try it. And if you can, if you're stuck in a village or stuck in a town, that's how I grew up. I was in one town my whole life. I mean, my whole upbringing was one town in Northeast where you have Puerto Rican here, Dominican here. I was the Italian Jew here. All different smells, all different colors. But everybody was united in poverty, basically. Like everybody's mom was working there. So you just come together in the village, and we try our best. I'm waxing poetically because I love it. Look at that picture.
I'm gonna.
Look at that.
Yeah, let's end on that because those are beautiful ending words. So do check out John's Twitter. I am a big fan of the conversations going on there. So if you guys are Twitter users, I know Twitter is not for everybody, but if you like Twitter, check it out.
Yeah, and I might be coming out with more stuff soon where people will be able to engage with me privately and stuff, because it's getting harder to follow up with Twitter. But yeah, I love engaging with people. Hit me up.
Awesome. Yeah.
I know you want to end. Did you want to talk about the Hindu Tava thing?
Oh yeah. I wasn't sure because we went over the time now.
I know we hit 2 hours, but that's my experience with Pakistan. I spent 6 months there.
Yeah, there's been kind of a mob against
because I think what we're talking about can also help solve the problem. I think the solution is in Indian history. It's through these Qawwalis. It's through the Sufism. It's through the beauty of Pakistan I'm talking about is also the beauty of India, because it's the same fucking land. When I talk about the beauty of America, I'm talking about the beauty of North. Like, it's the same. So when I tell you these beautiful things about Pakistan, it's because of your culture, guys. It's because of your people. Like, the beauty exists there, but guess what? The evil exists there. The evil of racism still exists in America. It's there. But the beauty, you have to fight it with the beauty. So the solution, guy, and that's why the Hindu Tava mob blew my mind. It blew my mind. But the solution is right there, guys. It's in your music. It's in your culture. But yeah, just if we want to talk about it quickly.
Sure.
But you have a bigger platform. You've dealt with it in a more significant way. I only have a couple thousand followers.
Yeah.
And I empathize with you. I appreciate your platform. You do great work, man. You do great work. And it's been a pleasure meeting you and being able to talk about these things and engage with people. I love you, man. I love you.
Thank you so much.
And never stop what you're doing, no matter what mob comes at you, man. I've had the experience of a trolls, and they've messed me up a little bit for a couple days, but don't stop what you're doing, man. I'll let you go, but you're doing great work.
Thank you.
But the Hindus have given you a hard time lately.
So this is a good example. So there's obviously Almin Nawabi. He started this hashtag Desecrate Quran. And he was, people were loving him. People were saying, "Look at this guy, he's hero. Look, he's great." And I even had another guy on Twitter from Turkey, was also Indian, like said, desecrate the Quran, and then he got upset at me for posting a picture of a Hindu god, and that's exactly what is happening now. He was doing this, and great for him, but now suddenly he's talking about Hinduism, and people are really, really upset at him, and to the point of trying to take down his Twitter. There was an actual criminal report filed against him in some small village in India. There's some famous right-wing, I think Bollywood actresses that are like sharing his tweets. I had some, I think, government official also share one of my tweets, which had like more than 5,000 shares or something. Like it's gone crazy. And it's just
The
like,
village court. That's the first time I heard they filed it in the village court. Huh? Oh God!
yeah, and it's like he's
Legal action.
It's and this is kind of the reason why Armin does these things, and the reason why I did it as well. And although I understand why people are criticizing me, because I was being a little bit more softer and I was not posting blasphemous pictures of Muhammad, but I do everything else I do is blasphemous about Muhammad. Like I'm pretty much saying he was a bad guy and everything else about it. But when it comes to Hinduism, they're like, well, why don't you do the same with Hinduism instead of posting a picture of a god? And I didn't realize like just how offensive it is for some of the pictures I posted. Like one of them was a picture of a Hindu Kali laying on a bed for some reason. And, I think the reason why is because of who is posting it, because I'm posting it. This is considered offensive and hateful. But it's funny that how this is considered. Let me just share my screen here. Like this picture I posted is considered offensive, but you can find Hindu temples that actually have far worse than this. Like it's like if you look up this Hindu temples, Khajuraho temple, I mean seriously, like this is and here's the thing with Hinduism in India and these type of things, there's so much variety, and there's Kama Sutra and there's all of these things, but if you have an ex-Muslim, they still see me as some sort of, closet Abrahamic
scum of the earth. The ex-Muslims are the scum of the earth.
How dare you offend a religious sentiment? And this is exactly what Armin was trying to show, and what I was trying to show. You can't call me bigoted because I'm sharing. And here's the funny thing: like one of the other posts I made, where I actually showed a picture. Now that picture I showed wasn't from Hinduism, but like there's Hindu artists that actually painted things like this, which are actually, this is a Hindu thing that was painted. Like this is not someone making fun of Hinduism. This is not someone making fun of Hinduism. This is a Hindu who made this. And this is like showing, something. Oh, you're muted, by the way.
Sorry, no, I don't want. That's offensive to me. That's That's disgusting. My mother raised me better than that. I cannot that offends my values as an American, as a Christian. That's offensive. I'm going to report that person. I'm going to report you. That is, I was raised better than that. My Christian faith believes that is a sacred thing that is for the bedroom. Oh, that's disgusting. That's hate crime. I cannot believe you would engage in hate speech. I'm going to report you. My whole church. That's disgusting. Get that image. You have no right to put that image up. That's disgusting. Look at, there's breast, there's a vagina with not. That's disgusting. That's fine. That's against the complete way I was raised. You have no right to put that up. You disgusting, filthy animal. Because my religion is pure, and you're a disgusting animal. Here's a picture of your mother in the same position, and this is morally correct. Because I said so.
Yeah. And the thing is...
Sorry, I did a little David Wood there for you.
Well, the funny thing is, here's the thing. The hypocrisy here is that this is a Hindu painting. This nothing offensive. And the thing is, you should see some of the comments, like some of the conversations we had, where it was like, oh,
I got 300 I've never gotten inundated. I'm just a composer. I just came on social media busy in like 5 months. I have gotten more. I didn't know how to handle the notification. Disgusting. What a first impression. I didn't want to enter, but you've gotten probably more. I only have a few thousand followers. I have gotten most. I miss the Salafis at this point. I've gotten just nastiness. What a strange way of life. I guess that's my perception.
But look at this. Look at this. So the picture I posted, which was this one, this was considered deeply offensive.
That looks sexy. I want to know about this god. Tell me about this god. She looks hot.
This is the same god. Now this is considered okay to post.
It's that nasty guy. She looks like she got a smelly.
This is the same god, but this is considered sacred, and this is okay. Now it's hard for me to understand why this is considered. Honestly, at the end of the day, you know what it is? It's who's posting it. Like if an ex-Muslim or a Christian posts this, they will lose this shit. But if obviously a Hindu can post this, it's fine. This is a Hindu painting. This is part of the tradition.
I think another strange argument. Didn't you see that it was like you have to come at it from like an academic perspective. They said you
Yeah.
come at it from criticism. You don't have right to do. If you're going to criticize religion, come at it from an academic perspective. I'm like, we're going back to this. So it's like this is the same thing. You don't know Arabic.
This is
No,
the
I
same
have the. It's the
thing.
same. You don't know. What do you mean? What do you want me to come in with a book report to tell me that this looks fucked up? Like, what? Like, come on. Like, sorry about my language, but like, this is the thinking where this is where I don't even have not point one. I don't even have point zero. When I have these, I'm trying to find a point. They're talking to me about history. I'm like, why? They're talking to me about this. Like, why? Like, how is this your mother? I just don't understand the logic. So, I don't get it, man. I
It's
do not get it. And I want to get it, and I love them. I respect their religion. But where are you coming from, and where does this come from, and has it always been this way? Because
it seems to have got worse. It seems to have got much worse, and I think that's the rise of the right. You know what I mean? Like it's got to the point where you got this puritanical sort of movements now, where like a lot of Hindus on Twitter that tell me there's no such thing as blasphemy, yet they're so pissed off by what Armin posted that they want to have him hanged. Like he's getting death threats. Now, I think that's the point that Ayman was trying to make and I was trying to make, is that you don't have the special right not to be blasphemed. You want to blaspheme Islam, that's fine. I'm happy to blaspheme Islam. I'm going to blaspheme Hinduism too. Why can't I do that? What, like, oh, but Hinduism never did anything to you. But why does Hinduism have to do something to me? Why does your religion get a special right not to be offended? Why do you have a special? You don't have a right. We're always saying to Muslims, okay, you can be offended, that's fine, that's your right to be offended, but I have a right to say what I want to say. You can be offended, that's fine. So Hindus, you can be offended by what Amin posted, what I posted, but the point is it lead to productive discourse? I think the point I was trying to make was that this is why I posted it, not because there was a reason. The reason was, and that other tweet I showed, you
don't need to explain yourself, man. No, stop. I'm from brother to brother, man to man. You don't have to explain yourself. You live in Canada.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain why you put it up. You have a right. That's it. You don't have to. Well, you explaining yourself gives them the power.
Yeah.
You have the right to just put it. That's it. You don't have to explain yourself. You're free. You have your own channel, your own Patreon, your own life, your own job, your own voice. They need to realize that, and they're going to get envious. I mean, you don't have to explain yourself. Like when you explain yourself, that's completely different. I know you want to do it, man. I know you want to do it, but I don't think you have to explain yourself. And the Hindus, didn't they lose an opportunity right now? If you have 1 million followers, I've never seen a Bollywood film in my life besides PK. Imagine if they did this. Imagine if they took that and they did like a bunch of TikTok dances of like comedies, like, oh, here's Hinduism, and they had a bunch of food and a bunch of like yogis like dancing, and they put some Bollywood music. People are like, all right, let's start like check out your local yoga center and don't listen to the atheists. Like it did like a TikTok. Imagine if that was the response. I'm like, all right, cool, that's pretty good. But instead, we got exactly what we had with the Muslims last week. Exactly. I mean, maybe there is a God. The Muslims did it last week. The Hindus did it this week. And the ex-Muslims are just sitting here like, no, I'm kidding. It's just like, what's going on here? But welcome to the world. Thank God we're in a pandemic where we can put a stream on and talk about it. I'm sorry for going over time. I just think that Hindu issue is a significant one. And just because they're not bombing stuff, guess what? I mean, there was, Oklahoma City, bombing in here. And you could say it was Christian. You could say he was an atheist. But that doesn't matter because some people say like Stalin, he was an atheist. Like, no, that's not even the point. That's not even the argument. Like, that's not even where we're going here. Like, bad behavior is bad. And if you have a standard, if you have a religion, you would think that you would want to sell it a little bit. But that's just me being rational. Sorry about that. But first impressions last. But hey, do you really want us to go on a big platform and say that our first impression of Hinduism is Hindu Tava, and have this guy talk about his first impression in Pakistan being greeted with hospitality and stuff? That's probably not going to fit the narrative you want. But guess what? Because humanity is varied. We don't have to explain everything. We call it how we see it. And that's the joy of the ex-Muslim, isn't it? Being on the outside, the joy of freedom. You don't have to explain yourself, man. You don't have to explain that statement. You lay it out there. You did your thing. The beauty of freedom of speech. And I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for coming on. And I'm glad you had time to talk about that. I thought we were, running out of time. I didn't know your schedule. So this is great. This is awesome.
I just sit on Twitter all day.
Thank you for...
No, it's weird because in the pandemic, I haven't had a lot of work freelancing. It's been tough. I hope everybody listening has been doing all right. The economy's tough. I've had a lot of time because I haven't had a lot coming in. I know you've been working from home. A lot of people are in different situations, but yeah, I have a lot of time. I'm on Twitter all the time because I love it, guys. So I appreciate the opportunity, man. I know it's
Absolutely.
tough times for a lot of people out there, and tough times can lead to a lot of tough things. I know I said I'm going to turn my air condition down. Maybe that's a sign of my privilege or whatever, guys. But I know everybody's got a different situation. Everybody's got tough times, but we'll get
Yep.
through it with love. Love each other.
Absolutely. So those of you who are late to the show, is going to be posted online. Do check out the Abdullah Samir podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you use your podcasting stuff. It might be a little bit easier for you to consume this type of content. So any of the long form interviews I'm doing are always going to be posted on the podcast as well. Otherwise, there's always YouTube. And if you're new, please do consider joining, subscribing, and all that fun stuff. Thank you, guys. It's been a good time, and stay tuned if you want to keep in touch and keep up with what John is doing. Like he said, Twitter is the best place to go. He's going to be conversing. Hopefully, this whole Hindu thing will die down, and we'll be getting back to talking about Islam, the real problem in the world today.
You could find me on Monday. I said I was going to give it a week, and that's my plan. I'm going to give it a week. I know a bunch of people followed me with Hindu names or Indian, whatever name, but Gujarati names or whatever. But I'm not going to be talking about this a lot. It's not my thing. But I'll give it a week. We'll see what happens. But I talk about all sorts of stuff. But I'm a musician, guys. Follow me for music, and stuff. Follow Abdullah for what he does. Follow all sorts of different people,
Yeah, exactly.
I can't talk about this stuff too much. I mean, it's
music
a strange topic for me.
John is by profession a musician. He makes music. So yeah, check him out. And thank you, guys. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.